You all know how to get to your chat box, whether you're on an iPad or a laptop. If you have questions throughout my presentation, go ahead and either write them there or jot yourself a note, because I'll go through the presentation first, and then, let's see here. I want to get rid of that. Let's see. This is where I want to be. Okay. Um, I'll go through the presentation first, and then I have a list of questions I've already constructed that I'm always getting asked, and I'm going to cover those. But then I want to make sure that I cover any questions you all have, and I'm going to be doing some samples and showing you a lot of things, not only in my presentation, but also on my tabletop here. And then we are going to start constructing our blocks. And some of you may actually work on your blocks today. Some of you may just watch. Whatever you choose to do is fine. I'm going to go ahead and show you the procedures on how to put them together. And you're able to actually, this Bachelor in Love Valentine's quilt was out on my 52-week series of scrappy blocks. So there are videos for the Valentine block as well as the Bachelor in Love blocks out on my YouTube channel. So if you don't get to the blocks today, you can actually just go out on my YouTube channel and follow along step by step there as well. So it can be a very relaxing morning or afternoon, depending on where you are, or you can go ahead and work along with us. So, have any of you already chosen your scraps and or fabrics for the quilt? Isabella has hers. Can you hold them up or show us? Oh, I'm sorry. She has to go and find them. Anybody else? There are Lori's. She's got hers. Excellent. Excellent. She is ready to go. There we go.
I think where I put them. Here.
If anybody else has theirs, you can go ahead and share with us. This quilt that I had done originally was in just fabrics that I had in the pinks and grays. Now, Isabel found it. Did you find them?
Mine's from a quilt that I had made before.
Okay.
They're just all the scraps that are in here. They're pinks and greens and
perfect
yellows.
Excellent.
I already had. I thought, well, we'll use all these scraps that I've already got.
Excellent. It's wonderful. I love to see that when quilters do that. So that's great. Love it. Love it. All right. But with this one, I had just used, basically they were remnant pieces of fabric that I had in my stash. So that's what I used for this one. But today I have actually pulled some very scrappy squares from my stash, and you'll see that in the second and third hour when I get to that. So, and just an FYI to everybody, I'm going to wait until about 5 after the hour to get started, just to make sure everybody is able to get on and doesn't have any issues. I keep watching my my email here also, just to make sure I'm not seeing anything from people that have any issues.
Yeah, Lori, I did have, but it could have been on my end, but I got it all worked out.
Oh, good, good, good.
But I did a test yesterday, so I was surprised that I had issues today, but I'm
Did
here.
Did you have to do an update?
I don't know what it was. It was just, well, my internet changed yesterday, provider.
Oh, okay. It's funny
So
how
in the midst of this, it was like, I didn't want to change it, but they changed it too soon. Anyhow, I said after.
Well, I'm so glad you got on, Carol. Excellent. Yeah. So good. Yeah, there's always something. And the frustrating thing is when I do lectures around the world via Zoom, I'll go in the morning of a lecture and just make sure to update any Zoom updates that might have come through. But there's always that opportunity for them to decide to do an update later on in the day. So when I'm jumping on to connect with the guild, I have to do an update. So there's Rhonda. Good morning, Rhonda. You'll have to unmute yourself so we can hear you.
Yep. Good morning.
And you're all the way in New South Wales, Australia, right?
That's
And
correct, yeah.
is it 5 a.m. tomorrow or January 2 for you?
Yeah, January 2. It's almost
Okay,
5 a.m. yet.
almost 5. Okay.
Oh
You are
my
an
goodness.
early riser. That's great. It's
Yeah, yeah.
wonderful to meet you.
Oh, I'll be back in a second.
Sure, absolutely. Um, so I'm just going to keep my eye on my emails here, make sure that nobody's trying to contact me with issues. And during this time, you can go ahead and gather a cup of coffee or some tea or note pen and pencil if you want to take some notes. You can gather your scraps and your fabrics, gather the things that you might need for the blocks. So
As I
welcome
was,
every.
yes, as I was logging on, I heard you asking about scraps, and I was about to pull them from my scraps
Okay.
and thought I didn't want to start yet another quilt. It's a small wall hanging, but I didn't want to have another project.
Yeah.
So I didn't think we would get it finished. Um,
Now,
all
today we're only going to be probably getting through one of each of the blocks. I'm going to demonstrate each of the blocks, and then you guys can continue working on them at your leisure. I did already mention, and help me to remember to mention this, that this quilt and both blocks are already on my YouTube so that you can see exactly how to put it together. It's part of my 52-week Scrappy series, my playlist on my YouTube channel. So if you have any questions after today, you can certainly email me, or you can
yeah,
simply go out to that YouTube and grab both of those blocks and you can watch the whole video,
yeah.
and it
Do
will
you
take you.
have to have a YouTube subscription or are you on the free YouTube?
I'm free. Yes.
Oh, okay,
I do
good.
have a membership out there which I'll tell you about today, but everything on my normal YouTube is free. So you can watch all of those at any time and it is free. Yeah. You
Oh,
just have to
good.
have an account with YouTube. That's all you know, you can put an app on your phone. And basically, it's just having an email address so that you can actually sign into YouTube and you can watch anything out there for free. But there are different channels that have subscriptions where it's actually a membership, I should say. You can subscribe at no charge, but there are memberships. And I'll talk to you about that today in case anybody's interested in that. So.
The quilt behind you is beautiful.
That one is the Purple Passion Mystery Quilt. I did that a few years ago. That pattern is out on my website. It's a free, all my mystery quilt patterns are free patterns. They're out on my website. You just need to go under the mystery quilt. It's under gallery and then go to mystery quilts. And then it will link you to either the blog or it will link you out to my YouTube channel, and all of the PDFs are there for it. And I'm going to share with you, the one on the wall is very scrappy. And then I have one laying down over the table here that is in purple. And you'll see that one here in just a little bit too. If I forget, please remind me to share that with you after the presentation. I want to pull that up and show it to you. So
Thank you.
let's see. Somebody had, Sue, your picture. Sue Nugent, you are saying that your picture's not showing up. Um, does that mean you yourself? Oh yeah. You have to turn your video on, Sue. Your video is your icon is turned off.
And if you have a camera that open and closes, open your
Okay,
camera.
wait a minute. Where is the video?
Sue, are you on a laptop?
Yes.
Okay, down at the bottom, there's a toolbar down across
Yeah.
the bottom, and there's a word video there. If there is a cross through it, that means you've toggled it closed. So just touch it again, and it should open up your camera. And then somebody also mentioned that your camera on your laptop might have a sliding bar. I've got a slider up at the top of my screen that closes my camera. So that might be the other option. There you go. We see you now, Sue. Gotcha.
Oh, this is
Got
a
it?
newer computer to me, and I haven't done Zoom on this
Mhm.
computer. Okay, got
You're
it.
all set. Good.
Thank you.
Okay, good, good,
Because I
good.
mean,
Yeah.
I paid
Yeah.
for it, and I could see everybody else, but I'm like,
Yeah, just
Somebody's
remember,
asked,
I was
somebody's
just gonna say,
asking,
just remember to close your cameras when you're all done, so you turn off the peepers.
oh, okay,
Okay, a techie thing.
okay.
Know why this is not going to
Sarah
my,
Lynn is asking about the size of the quilt. I think it's 42 by 42. I'll have to check that out, but I believe it's 42 by 42. Each of the blocks in the Bachelor in Love quilt, it's 12 and a half inches when you make it, and then it is 12 inches in the quilt. And then there's a few little borders. And I guess it all depends on what size borders you want to put on it. You could put bigger borders or less borders on it.
weird.
I have a question. You start out with 4-inch scraps, 4-inch squares. Could you adapt it to 5? I mean, on our own, not expecting you to do it. I've taken your stuff before and I have my totes of the different sizes. Could I just use a 5-inch square and adapt the rest of the sizes?
You could. I don't know what the end result would be for that. Now, your 5-inch squares are what you're going to be using to make the half square triangles. So your half square triangles will square up to 4.5 inches. So that would be the size of each unit within that block. So, but yes, you can certainly, and we'll talk more about that when we get to the blocks themselves, but absolutely you can do that. I love it when quilters take this information and they just, make it their own and do something completely different. I love that. I love seeing those quilts. I love hearing about it. I love it when you share that information with me on the YouTube channel as well as email or even on my Facebook page. So great.
Lori,
So hello,
Lori?
somebody said hello. I'm trying to
Yes,
see who that was.
Sue Nugent.
Sue, okay.
Yes.
don't know
Now
why
I
that's
don't
not
have
connecting.
anything in 4-inch squares. So if they need to be cut, they have to be like where you have the yardage, the white, dark pink, light pink, purple, those colors.
Well, you can have any colors you want, which you'll see during the second hour.
Okay.
And during the second hour, we'll cover the sizing and so forth and how you can go about doing that. The first hour, what I'm going to do is my Speedy Solutions techniques. I'm going to share with you those techniques so you all understand those. And you're going to see some eye candy. You're going to see where you can find a lot of stuff on my website and YouTube channel. I'm also going to share with you, I've got a list of questions that I often get from my students. So at the end of the presentation, I am going to cover those questions. And as I'm going through the presentation, please be sure to either write out your questions on a notepad with you next to you or put them in the chat. And after I do the presentation, then I will answer those questions that I think you've already got that I'll go ahead and cover. Plus, I'll cover the chat questions and we will also cover individual questions. Then we're going to go to block number 1, which is that Bachelor in Love block. We'll spend time working on that, talking about our scraps, etc. Then we're going to go to block number 2, which is the Hearts and Flowers block. So does anybody have
Well, then you don't have to listen to
questions on that?
No.
Right now, I'm just kind of waiting for everybody to get on before I get started. There were a total of 63 who signed up. There were some that already have contacted me that it's not going to work out for them today, but hopefully most of you will be able to get on so we can enjoy this together. I'm excited to present here today. I'm paging through. If you're not familiar with Zoom, there are arrows on each side of either your iPad or your laptop, and you can page through to see all of the different people. On my screen right now, it is showing 4 times 20 different people on each page. as I'm going through here. What I will do when I begin the presentation, I'm going to ask all of you to make sure that you have muted yourself. And that way I can, whatever background noise might happen in your home, maybe somebody walks in and chats with you, or a radio or TV gets turned on, or a phone rings, that won't disturb everybody else. So if you'll mute yourself before I get started on the presentation, that would be great. And then I'm going to go ahead and open up that, and I'm going to spotlight myself, and then I'm going to spotlight my presentation so that you'll see all of that. It should be the main thing that is on your screen once we get to the presentation. All right. Some of you are coming on and then falling back off. There might be some RAM issues there, or seen a couple that have come on and then they've fallen back off and they've come back on again. Anybody have any questions right now before we get started? We still have a few popping on every couple of seconds, so. No. All right. Well, here's what I'm going to do. Okay, I have spotlighted my video, so everybody should be seeing me right now. Is that correct? Can you all see me?
Yes.
Great. Darylyn has a question. She wants me to repeat how to get to this pattern behind me. And I will cover that in more detail in a few minutes when I share my screen. But this is a mystery quilt that I've done. All of my mystery quilts are free. And when you go to my website, go over to the gallery tab on the website at the top there, scroll down to mystery quilts, and you'll see all kinds of mystery quilts. This one's called Purple Passion. And don't let me forget, there's a Purple Passion quilt on the tabletop here. It's done in purples, which hence the name. And I want to share that with you too later on. So once I'm done with the presentation. So hopefully that answered her question. Looks like there's one more question. I think we got everybody. Okay. Now, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Okay. Can you all see my Speedy Solutions presentation? Does that show up on your screen?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for letting me know that. All right, so what I'm going to be doing here today is I'm going to start out just with the first screen is just letting you know who I am and what I'm all about, what my business is about, so you're familiar with me. The next thing I'm going to do is share with you a lot of fun things that I have available for you as a quilter. As a quilter, I love getting free things. I just really enjoy that. So I have that available for you if you want it. I'm going to show you where it is so you can go out and get it if you choose to. So I'm going to show you all that. I'm going to be discussing today my Speedy Solutions techniques, and I do have a book set, so I'm going to talk to you about that. Then we're going to go into the presentation. I'm going to teach you my techniques, those wonderful Speedy Solutions techniques that will help you get your scrap stash cut, sorted, organized, stored, and ready to use. Then we're going to see some eye candy of some quilts that I have made using my Speedy Solutions scrap stash. And your scrap stashes can all make gorgeous quilts. I promise you that it really can. Once I'm done with that, I'm going to go through a list of questions that I've already put together that I think you might want answered. And if there's any questions that you all have, please go ahead and write those in the chat, or take a pencil and notebook and write that down. And after that, then we'll cover those because I want to make sure all questions are answered. Then the next hour, we are going to start working on the blocks. I'm going to demo the Bachelor in Love block the second hour, and then I'm going to demo the Hearts and Flowers block the third hour. So that's kind of an overview of what's going to happen here today. So, and also if you are on, if you could please mute yourself just in case there's some background noise that comes up. That way it won't affect others being able to hear what's going on. I really appreciate that. So my name is Lori Dickman. I live in Rockford, Illinois, which is in the northern part of the state of Illinois. We're just an hour from Madison, Wisconsin. We're really close to the border. I live here with Scott, my husband. I have been playing with fabric and color. I love quilting and sewing and teaching. I've been doing this for many, many years, over 50 years. When I was a young girl, probably 11, 12 years old, I started sewing my own garments and just loved that. And then after high school, I was sewing bridal ensembles. And then in the 80s, I found quilting and I just fell in love with it. The art of making has really been a wonderful journey for me. I've loved it. And I do all kinds of crafts, you name it. But quilting is obviously my passion. I'm an educator, a lecturer, an author, a pattern designer. And the two places that I want you to be aware of are my website and my YouTube channel, because there's so much out there for you, and I'm going to share that with you. You are welcome. In fact, I encourage you to have your camera ready at hand throughout this presentation. If there's anything you want to take a picture of on the slides, please go ahead and take a photo of that so that you'll have that for future. Some of you may have met me already. I've taught on quilting cruises. I've taught at many shows, at Paducah, at Great Wisconsin Quilt Show. I will be teaching on another quilt cruise in March to the Western Caribbean. This March, we're going to be going to, let's see here, the Bahamas, Jamaica, Grand Cayman, and Cozumel, Mexico. And then in 2027, I'll be doing another quilt cruise. Those are so much fun. If you want some information on it, please email me and I'll help you out with that. So, a Stitch and Haven company is in charge of it. They've been doing this for many, many years, and they do a great job. And the price on it is really reasonable, and it's just so fun. So grab a friend and have fun with it. And then also in May, I will be doing a Sewcation in Charleston, South Carolina. So if any of that is interesting to you, let me know, and I'll help you find where you can get some more information on it. This is a snapshot of my website, quiltingwithlori.com. I hope that you'll go out there and register, sign up for my newsletters. There will be a little box that will pop up, and you just put in your name and your email address, and you will immediately receive a free 20-plus page ebook in your email. And some email servers or providers throw that PDF into the spam folder. So check your spam, but it should be there. If you can't find it, let me know and I'll make sure that you get that. What I really want to point out, though, you can find out more about me under the About tab and what I can offer guilds, but this Learn tab right here is what I want you to really investigate. There is so much information out there for you. So please take some time and go through the Learn tab and the blog. There's a lot of great information in the blog. And then over here, this is the gallery that I was referring to. And under this gallery, I have lots of different, there's scrap quilts, there's art quilts, it's template quilts, and then there's my mystery quilts. So that is where you want to head to if you're interested in learning more information on my mystery quilts. So you're welcome to take a snapshot of this page if you need to, or just find it out on my website. This is a snapshot of my YouTube channel. It kind of looks very similar to my website page. If you want to take a picture of this QR code will automatically take you out to my home page on my YouTube channel. And I have over 300 videos for you. Those videos are all free. I hope you'll go out there and just subscribe to my channel. That is free. I love to hear comments from you all. I love it when you're able to watch all of the videos. And maybe some night you have you can't sleep and you can binge watch. Just have fun. But I've got lots of different playlists out there covering many different subjects. So there's a lot of information out there. And earlier, somebody had asked me about membership. And I have in August, I started a membership on my YouTube channel. And what that is, it's a special membership for people who want to join it. There is a cost for it. I've got 2 levels. I've got the monthly Zoom call level at $4.99, and then the block of the month Zoom call, which is more expensive. It's $9.99 a month. But if you take a picture of this QR code here, it will take you out to a video that will explain exactly what this is. Maybe it's something you're interested, maybe it's not, and that's fine. But what we do enjoy are the monthly Zoom calls where we get inspired and we get to do so many different things. We learn a lot, and I really love teaching and inspiring quilters. So today, on January 1st, my membership is getting my Speedy Solutions techniques, and we're working on the Bachelor in Love scrappy quilt pattern. On February 7, we're going to be working with crumbs. I don't know if you've ever worked with crumbs, but I love working with crumbs. I'm going to share more of that with you. And on March 14, I'm going to be teaching beginning Bargello and beyond. So every month in 2026, there's going to be a 2-hour video plus other things that happen, and you'll get to be a part of that if you are a member. And that QR code that I had shared on that page will explain all the details about it. I mentioned I have playlists, lots of different playlists on my YouTube channel. This is one that's very popular. It's how to use your scrap stash. That is so important. Once you get your scrap stash cut ready to go, so how do I use it? So this playlist will help you. There's all kinds of patterns in there. So jump out there and just kind of browse around and see which quilt do you want to make with your scrap stash. And so check that playlist out. This is another playlist. 3 years ago, I think I started a 1-year, 52-week series of scrappy blocks. Every Monday, I created a scrappy block. I posted the video on my YouTube channel, and it was a free PDF. So in the description box below each of those videos is the PDF. You can either download it and print it if you want, or just download it and save it to your laptop, whatever you prefer. I made a notebook of mine because I like to have it in my hands. I'm not sure if you all do, but all of that is free to you if you want it. Now, over the last couple of years, I've had so many women and quilters, I should say, because men and women have been asking me this, but they want a book that they could actually purchase with all of that, plus my quilting techniques. So I'm almost at that point where it's ready to go. It will be a downloadable file. It will be available in my PDF tab of my shop if you're interested. It's coming soon. I'm hoping by this weekend I'll have it out there. But it's going to have all 52 of those blocks. It's going to have the quilt ideas for you. It's going to teach you my quilt as you go techniques that I love to use, and how you can quilt this particular, there's 25 blocks in this quilt that I had done from that 52-week series. So there's a lot in it if you're interested in that. So I just wanted to point that out in case you happened to be one of those quilters who had asked me for that. This is my Speedy Solutions book set. On the left is my techniques book. It teaches you everything you need to know to get your scrap stash cut, sorted, organized, and ready to use. I do have a video out on my home page of my YouTube channel that follows along through there and helps you through that, kind of like what I'm going to be doing here today. And then on the right-hand side is a patterns book. These 12 patterns, I'm going to show you those today in this presentation, and they are all made from my scrap stash, and you can do the same thing with your scrap stash. Between those 2 books, you get a total of 17 scrappy patterns, and I do have available on Amazon, Kindle, and eBay for those of you that are out of the country. And also, if you are interested in this and you have not yet got your book set, it is already discounted out on my website for you, but I also have a free ship coupon code that's down there at the bottom of the screen. If you are interested in it and would like it, you can use that free ship coupon code to place in that redemption spot as you're checking out. So something to think about if you're interested. Okay, so now with all of the quilts you're going to see during the trunk show part of this, they're my quilts and I do the quilting on them. I do have a long arm, but I don't have a computerized long arm. I really wish I did, maybe someday. But so what I do is it's all hand guided, free motion. I love doing that. I love ruler work. I do some edge to edge. You'll see some of them are edge to edge. It's all done on my Tin Lizzie, and it's all done by me. I don't have a computer. These rulers you see up there seem to be my go-to rulers as I'm quilting, but there are others that I've added to that so far. Now let's get to the good stuff. My goal today is to share with all of you and help you to understand that you can take this mess. Does this look familiar to any of you? Hopefully I'm not the only one that ends up with messes like this, but this is just a mess of fabric. And when I see this, I just want to turn and walk away. But what I want you to do is turn that into this. They're beautifully cut squares. They're organized by size and value, darks, mediums, and lights. And I want you to know that that mess right there takes up a whole lot of real estate. But there it is, cut up and pressed and organized. And now you can store that neatly in containers, and it takes up so much less real estate. And I love that. And I love the fact that this gets my creative juices flowing. This I can work with. I'm excited about that. Ultimately, I want you to be able to use my Speedy solution. So you're going to just be able to take an empty bin, take your pattern, head to your scraps, and start pulling out squares and strips and templates in the sizes that you need, in the values that you need. Take it to your machine and start sewing. That's what's exciting about this. But there's something you need to do first, and that is get your mess pressed and scrapped up, right? So you need to set up an appointment with yourself. If you don't set up an appointment, and maybe you need to set up a lot of appointments, but if you don't do that, you're never going to get it scrapped up and ready to go. As you can see from that bottom photo there, I have a ton of scraps there that I was taking care of. Now, those are remnants of previous projects. I personally do not cut into yardage or fat quarters. I am simply scrapping up all of the remnants from previous projects. That's what I do. That might not be what you do, but that is what I do. So everything you see there, they're remnants. And what we're going to do today is cover this: press, cut, organize, store, and then use. And so we're going to share with you how to do all that. The first thing is to press this mess. You definitely need to get some body back into that mess. So grab your starch. I do use steam. Maybe you like magic sizing, maybe you like Mary Ellen's best press, maybe you like Acorn's precision piecing, whatever it is that you like to use, but definitely do that. When I'm pressing all of that, I will lay it out as many as I can that will fit nicely on the ironing board, and then I'll spray it all, and then I'll steam it, and then I'll transfer that whole bit over to the table, and I will start all over again until I have a nice pile ready to be cut. And you're going to notice in my stash, it does include upholstery fabrics, heavy cottons. I've got suedes, I've got satins, I've got velvets, I've got everything in there. The reason that I cut those up, number one, I'm a garment sewer also, but number two, I love to do applique art quilts. And so that is why I cut that up. And you'll see more about that here toward the end of this presentation. So the tools of the trade obviously are the iron, the ironing board, all of your rotary mats and rulers and rotary blades, etc. The cutter, you need all of that. The ruler that I find I'm using most often is my 6.5-inch ruler. It just really maneuvers around. I can cut a variety of sizes, but you do need the long ones, the little ones, the fat ones, the skinny ones. You need them all. So just have them all at hand when you're getting ready to scrap up your stash. Now, when I work through my stash, I always like to follow my scrapping rule, and I call it Lori's first scrapping rule. At all of my workshops, when they get their scraps pressed, they lay their first piece in front of them, and then they look up at me and they ask, "What should I cut first? What should I do?" And I just recommend that you cut the largest piece possible out of each and every scrap, and then continue cutting the largest piece possible out of that scrap until there's nothing left but the little pieces that can become pillow stuffing. For me, the smallest square that I will cut is 1.5 inches, because that's going to finish at 1 inch in a quilt. And for me, that's plenty small. You might like smaller pieces, and that's fine. This is your scrap stash. You cut what you want and will use. I will cut all the way up to 10-inch squares. 10-inch squares are fabulous. I love those. I'm going to show you block that I just did on Monday on my YouTube channel that is just really a fun block to make with 10-inch squares. Then use sticky notes. You can either put them on the table or on a foam board that give the sizes, because as you're cutting, then lay that block on the up with the appropriate size sticky note. They all start looking the same size, so it's really important to do that. It will just really help you out. If you look at these photos here, at the bottom photo, the largest piece that I could cut out of that triangle is a 2.5-inch square. So I cut a 2.5-inch square, and then from each end of that triangle, I was able to cut 1.5-inch squares. So I cut up a lot of the fabric in that scrap, and I was able to use it. They became squares, and then the leftover pieces became pillow stuffing. But always try and cut the largest piece possible. There's a number of rules that you'll find in my techniques book. One of them is a selvage rule. And you want to cut away the selvage from your scraps. You don't want that in your blocks or in the backing of your quilt either. It does affect how your quilt hangs, so make sure you remove that. As I mentioned earlier, the tiny pieces that are really small, you can use them for pillow stuffing. You got to make sure they're nice and small, though, otherwise the stuffing will be chunky, and you don't like chunky stuffing in a pillow, so make sure it's nice and small. Chop it up if you need to. The best procedure to follow when you're finding these bias pieces, sometimes when we have leftover remnants of maybe circles that we had cut out of something or whatever, you're going to find these on the bottom left. There's a photo there of some really strange pieces. These happened to be, one was a garment and one was just like a big triangle thing. What I would do with that is cut the smallest square possible. You need to find the straight of grain, locate the crosswise and lengthwise threads, lay your ruler on that as close as possible and make your first cut, and then continue cutting. So cut small pieces for those bias pieces. That's the only time that I break my first scrapping rule and don't use that. I like to cut small pieces from that. Or the other thing you could do with those weird wonky pieces is throw them in your crumb basket, which we'll talk about here in a minute too. So here we've got some odd-shaped scraps. Most of the time, when you go through your remnants, if you're like me and you're cutting up remnants of previous projects, there will be a straight edge on that remnant somewhere. So find that straight edge and then just put your ruler on that straight edge and make your first cut. And then everything that you cut from that point on will be on the straight of grain. And then just take the leftovers and they can become pillow stuffing, or they can go into the crumb basket. And if you notice down here, I've got 2 crumb projects on the bottom. I'll show these to you here at the end, but the one on the left is, these both are, I think, 3-part series on my YouTube channel. It's all free, so you can just grab your crumbs and start watching at part 1 and go through and make both of these. The one on the left is a small wall quilt. The one on the right is a table runner. They each, I believe, have a 3-part series to them. On the quilt on the right, I'm teaching you not only to make crumbs, but to cut the crumbs using templates. I'm teaching you how to use adding machine tape with your crumbs. I'm also teaching you trapunto on that particular quilt. So you'll learn all of that when you go to my YouTube channel and go to that crumb list playlist, the crumb quilting playlist. I got to spit it out here. The crumb quilt playlist on my YouTube channel. That's where you'll find that. And then on the right-hand side, that one is a table runner. And again, we're just using crumbs, and I'm teaching you, we start in the center with those strips on those rectangles. We make crumbs for the flowers using templates and crumbs, and we applique those. We also use the strips of crumbs for the outside, and in that series there, I'm teaching you my quilt as you go techniques that I love. So those are some options available for you. They're free. They're out on my YouTube channel if you would like to check those out, if you want to get familiar with crumbs. So we talked so far about squares and how important it is to cut up squares in the various sizes and the values, lights, mediums, and darks. But you also want to go to your stash of rulers and find what templates you have, whether they're rhombuses, diamonds, or triangles, tumblers, hexes, Dresdens, whatever it happens to be, and cut your scrap stash also using those templates, and make sure you cut them in light, medium, and dark. It is wonderful if you need to make a quilt fast. Maybe your guild wants you to do a generosity quilt and you haven't had time to cut anything out. All you do then is you go down, let's say, to your tumbler stash, pull out all of them and start arranging them on your design wall or on the floor. Make sure you pull lights, mediums, and darks, and you've got a quilt in no time that you can get up in the long arm and get it quilted for that generosity project. So it's great to have those available. The other really important thing for quilters is to have strips of fabric. Strip piecing is so important. I use it a lot in the patterns that I design. For me personally, I like to have 1.5, 2, 2.5, and 3.5 inch strips of fabric widths on hand in my stash in all three values, lights, mediums, and darks. So when I'm stripping up fabric in my scrap stash, I will strip up those sizes and store them. And we'll talk about storage here in just a minute. Let's talk a little bit about value. When it comes to value, I do not get hung up on value because value is relative to its surroundings. And basically, what you will find is when you're pulling scraps for a block, whatever you pull, let's say you've got that blue and white square in your hand, and you're really not sure, is this a medium or is this a light? What is this thing? Or is this a dark or a light? When you pull that scrap and put it with all of the other squares that you've pulled for a specific block, those other squares will dictate what it is. Now, for that blue and white square, it's kind of an oddball one because of the fact that all the light is in the center and all the dark's on the outside. A couple of things you could do. If you're not sure where to place that in your value pile, I would just throw it in the mediums pile maybe at this point and let the other squares dictate to it what it's going to be. But you could also just cut it in fourths, and then it's predominantly dark. And so that makes it very simple. Let's take a peek at that square down at the bottom there. It's the stripes. It kind of has an even distribution of medium and dark in there. So it could be either or. I think I would just throw that in my
You need to
medium
watch it so I
value
go make
pile right
coffee.
now.
Tell me what I'm missing.
Could somebody has
I'll
not
make coffee.
muted
I'll make
themselves? If you could mute yourself,
How am I
please.
going to do that?
Here, let me see if I can. There we go. I think we've got it. All right. So with the stripes, I would probably just throw that in the mediums pile, and that's what I would do. And then when I pull my stash, it will dictate, everything else will dictate to it what it is. Here is a really simple solution. When you have all of your scraps pulled in front of you and you can't tell, is this a medium, is this a dark, is this a light, put them all together where you can see them all. Take your iPhone, take a picture of it, or your cell phone, take a picture of it, and then remove the color so it's just the gray tones. And that will tell you immediately what is dark, what is light, and what is medium. It's the simplest way to determine value. So hopefully you'll try that. It's really kind of fun. Now let me see, I got to get there we go. Okay, so we have pressed, we've cut squares, we've cut strips, we've cut templates. Now we're going to sort all of that. We're going to sort it by shape, we're going to sort it by size, and we're going to sort it by value. And then we're going to put it all in individual containers by shape, by size, and by value. And then the magic at this point is really going to start happening because your eye is picking up future quilt making projects at this point. So you've got it cut, you've got it sorted, you've got it separated, and now you're putting in containers. A few more tips here real quick that you'll find in my techniques book. Whenever we put a quilt up on the long arm and finish quilting it and remove it, or quilt it on our domestic sewing machine, we remove that quilt and we have to square it up. And we end up with leftover backing. We end up with leftover batting. And we, of course, end up with leftover binding. All of those things can also be used to make some beautiful projects. So You can create 2.5-inch batting strips, which you'll see here in this photo. I've taken all the leftover and just rolled it up. I've got lots of that, so I can make all kinds of jelly roll rugs. In fact, I have a YouTube video that teaches you exactly how to make this jelly roll rug, and you can do baskets and this using the same techniques. So all of that can be used. It doesn't have to go in the trash. Or you can also do Franken batting projects. And I do have a YouTube video on Franken batting projects. We can talk about that later. All right. So we have cut, sorted, we've pressed, cut, sorted, organized. We've put it into containers. Now, where are we going to put this? And the first thing to think about is what can you use for your containers? I would not necessarily recommend going out and buying something right away. First, look through your house. See what you have that you could already use. Maybe you already have baskets or cubes. Maybe you already have plastic shoe boxes or rolling carts. Or maybe you have an unused dresser. All of those things work really well. And sometimes just find the storage system that's going to work best for you. You might go through a couple of different systems before you find the one that you really like. And maybe you will end up going out and buying some things once you're kind of familiar with what might work for you. Definitely invest in a labeling machine. That is important. And label everything. Label the lids, label all sides, label all of it. It will really be convenient for you. And then keep your scrapped up stash within easy reach so that you see it, so you know where it is, and so that you can always use it, that you're inspired to use it. Don't hide it away somewhere and forget about it. So here is how I store my scrap stash. So on the right, I've got these they're not dressers, they are shelves. I have bookshelves filled with, they used to call them shoe boxes. I don't think they call them that anymore, but you can get these at the dollar store, Target, Walmart, anywhere you can get them. Just make sure that the lid actually works with the bottom that you get. I've had an issue with that in the past, but I've got all of those there, and I have my scraps stashed in there from 1.5 inches all the way up to 6 inches. I also store my strips in there. I fold up my strips and I divide them lights, mediums, and dark by size, 1.5, 2, 2.5. I also store templates in these. So I have these bookshelves around my quilting studio, and I have all of those items in there. And make sure that you label all sides of the tub so that whatever way you happen to throw that tub back on the shelf, you can still see what's in there. Okay, let's look at the bottom center photo. That's this one right here. These are blue cubes. So I have some lower shelves that fit cubes. And in each of those cubes, I am storing my fat quarters and half yard up to 3 yard pieces by color. So you can see yellow and orange there, but I've got reds and pinks and blues and purples and greens and browns and blacks. I also have Christmas and baby themed and harvest theme fabrics that are larger pieces. So I put those in there. I also have an area for backings. So this picture up here is a pull-out drawer that I have over at the other side of the quilting studio. And these are roll-out drawers. And on there, I have rolled up larger pieces of fabric. So some of them are 44 inches wide, and they might be 4 yards or up to 10 yards, or they might be the 108-inch backing. But whenever I need a backing, that's where I go to get my backing. And then down here in this photo, you'll see I've got a cupboard. I've got a couple of cupboards, actually, filled with batting that I have personally stripped up from leftover batting around the outside edges of my quilts. So I have batting there to make all kinds of beautiful gifts for family and friends. So that is how I stash and store all of my scrap stash. So now you've seen the techniques and overview of how that's done. Now, I want to show you how to use your scraps in quilt patterns. And it really is easy to substitute fabric from your own stash for most patterns. There are some that it's not going to work, but most patterns it does. What you're going to do is take an empty container, your pattern, go to your stash, and start pulling the sizes, the values, and the colors of the squares, the templates, or the strips that you need for that quilt, and put that in your little empty container and get it all filled up with what you need and bring it back to your sewing machine. You can also pull yardage for borders if you choose to do that at this time. Now, if you remember, I think I mentioned, I may have forgotten to mention, when I'm cutting up my scrap stash, I cut from 1.5 all the way up to 10 inches. I only cut half-inch increments. I do not cut any other increments. It's 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, 4, 4.5, 5, etc., all the way up to 10. And even if your pattern does call for an odd size square, you can still use your Speedy Solution scrap stash. So let's say my pattern is asking for 60 2 3/4 inch dark squares. Well, I don't have any 2 3/4 inch dark squares, but I do have 3-inch dark squares. I'm going to go to my stash. I'm going to grab a bundle that I think might be 60 squares. I'm not going to count them out right now. I'm going to grab them, put them in my container, take that to my sewing machine when I have everything ready. And then what I'm going to do is at that time, I'll pull 2 at a time. I will count it then, or maybe 4 at a time, whatever I'm comfortable cutting. And that's when I will count them. And I will simply trim away 1/4 inch off 2 sides. And I've got 2 3/4 inch squares in no time. Within about 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, I will have all 60 squares that are 2 3/4 inches square. And I have not had to go to my yardage, press the yardage, square the yardage up, cut strips of yardage, and subcut all of those, which takes a long time. So your Speedy Solution scrap stash is really convenient, and you can use it for any oddball sizes. Just grab the larger square and trim it down. You can also use your Speedy Solution stash for all of those different techniques, the half square triangles, the quarter square triangles, snowballing your squares, flying geese, etc. In fact, today we are going to be creating half square triangles in our Bachelor in Love quilt block. In fact, it's mostly half square triangles, only 4 actual squares. The rest of it is going to be half square triangles. And this is how we're going to do it. And if you've never done this, I'm sure most of you have already used this technique to make a half square triangle. But if not, here's what we're going to do. And I'll be reviewing this when we get to it. We're taking 2 squares, right sides together. And these are larger squares than what they're going to be trimmed up to be. We're going to draw a diagonal line, and we're going to sew a scant 1/4 inch on both sides. Now, when I do half square triangles, I do them assembly line fashion, or chain pieces, however you want to call it. But I will pair up all of my squares first, the darks with the lights right sides together. Then I'll draw the line on each pair all the way through. Then I am going to cut on the drawn line. Then I'm going to press all of them. And the most important part is right here. You must trim up each and every half square triangle unit to the exact measurement that it should be. It doesn't look like there's much excess fabric here, but if that amount of excess fabric on each square within the block was left, you'd have a mess on your hands, and your quilt won't go together well, your block won't go together well. So make sure that each half square triangle unit is squared up properly. Now let's look at some quilts here. These are quilts that you're going to see that they're in my patterns book. And the first one is Starlight. And you'll notice this YouTube logo here. That means that the instructions on how to put this block together is on my YouTube channel. So whenever you see that, you'll know you can just jump out to my YouTube channel, search for Starlight or whatever it is you want to search for, and you'll be able to find the video that teaches you how to put the block together. This black outline here is the block that is used for this entire quilt. It's just one block. And what we're going to do is pull squares. We're going to pull 2.5-inch squares in lights and brights. We're going to pull 4.5-inch squares that are light for the center here. And we're going to pull some strips. We are needing 2.5-inch wide strips, which are either subcut into 4.5 inches, or there's another way that you can get your strips, which I'll share with you in just a second. And then, of course, we need our 3-inch squares from which we're going to make our half square triangles. And we're going to trim it down to 2.5 inch. Every single square will be 2.5 inches. And then, of course, you can pull your yardage if you want. For this quilt, what I did is some custom paisley feathers. I did feather work out there. I did pull white and red borders, and I did the quilting on that. But it's you can do pantos, whatever you choose to, stitch in the ditch, whatever you choose to on these patterns. Now, this right here is my Starlight block. So for each block, and you can see what it looks like right up there, for each block, this is what you need to pull for that one block. Let's say you wanted to make a placemat and you wanted 3 of those blocks. All you would need to do then is times each of these by 3. So you'd pull 3 4.5-inch centers. You'd pull 12 2.5-inch light blocks, which is what you're going to have for these 4 points right here. You'll pull 12 2.5-inch brights, which are these 4 outer points right there. And you'll pull, in this case, I'm pulling 2 5-inch lights. This is where I'm going to make my rectangles. So this is the second way that you can create a rectangle. You can either pull the 2.5-inch strips and subcut them at 4.5, or you can pull these 5-inch squares, which I've done there, cut them in half, and now you just have to cut off a 1/2 inch, and you've got all 4 of your rectangles that are going to go around the outside edge of this block. And then, of course, you need your lights, brights, and darks that are larger squares for your half square triangles, and they're down here. And I'll be showing you how to do that. So that's what you need for each square, and you just need to multiply that and decide how many blocks do I want to make, and this is what I'll need to pull as I go through that. Here is another one, mirror, mirror. This is a huge block. It's a fun one. If you want to really use up your scrap stash quickly, this is a great one, a great pattern. This is a 16-inch block, or 16.5-inch before it goes in the quilt. It finishes at 16. And what you've got here is 1 8.5-inch square, and then we have 3 of these orange, 3 of these dark black, and 6 of these lights. They're all 4.5-inch squares. Let me show you that. So here is an 8.5-inch block. This is what I need for this mirror, mirror. So this 8.5-inch block actually creates one of the 4 patches. This is a 4 patch is what this is. These are 4 patches within a 4 patch. It's so simple. So here we're going to, at the top here, we're going to sew 3 of the blue with 1 of this burgundy. Here we're going to sew 3 of the lights with 1 of the burgundies. Here we're going to sew 3 of these lights with 1 of the burgundies. 4 patch, 4 patch, 4 patch, and this 1 patch. And it's a 4-patch unit. That's all there is to it. It is so simple, and yet it creates such a beautiful quilt. Now, these are the sizes that I used to create a 16-inch finished block. You can make adjustments to all of this. You can adjust values. You can swap all your values around. This doesn't have to be a dark here. This can be a light, and everything else can be different. Have fun, experiment, and play with your stash. This one is Ohio Star. This one is using 2 blocks. So you're making the Ohio Star block and then a simple 4-patch. Now I want to point out something here. My scrap stash is large enough that I actually was able to go in and pull of my lights, mostly creams, and then of yellows. And then I was also able to pull for some of the mediums, the lavenders, various lavenders, and for the darks, a dark purple. So I was able to do that because my stash is large enough that I could actually find those specific hues in the values that I needed them to be in. And so if you are a person who does not like the real scrappy, like the one on the wall here, that one's really scrappy. Maybe you like something that's a little bit more calming here. This is just basically a 3-color quilt, if you will. If that's what you like, you might want to do that as you're creating your quilts. Here's my Irish Dresden. This is a really fun quilt, such a bright, cheerful quilt. There's 2 blocks in this one, the Dresden and the Irish chain, and the scraps that you're pulling are simply lights and brights. 2.5, 3.5, 6.5. Those 6.5-inch squares are going to be what you cut the circles from. And then the 2.5-inch strips of fabric that are light. And then, of course, your background squares. What a fun, cheerful project this is. And of course, with all of these patterns, you can make them as large or as small as you want by just simply creating more or less blocks for each of the patterns. And then I did outline and paisley quilting on the Irish blocks and feather quilting on the Irish chains, etc. So that was a lot of fun working on that. This is a very popular pattern, California Maze. And again, this is a quilt that just uses one block. It's right here. And you really take advantage of making use of the very dark darks and the light lights and then the mediums in your stash when you're pulling for this. And what you're going to do, this is a total of 16 blocks in the center of this quilt. And you're simply tilting the block one way or the other as you work your way across each row. And it creates this beautiful, beautiful maze. And then it's offset with a navy border and then a pieced border as well. Very fast and easy. Here's another one where I took scraps from my stash that were in the lights, the pinks, the blues, and the blacks. So I was able to keep it in certain hues because I had a lot of that in my stash. And so you can do that. I call this marching monkeys because it looks like there are monkeys holding onto the tail of the next monkey and they're marching along in diagonal rows. I do have on my YouTube channel a technique where it's so simple to make the marching monkey block. And you're simply taking a square, you're cutting it into on the diagonal, and you're using those triangles to create that block. It is fast and easy. I think you'll enjoy it. Ducks in My Pond is another one that's in that patterns book, and you actually get it in two different sizes. This is the wall quilt that you're seeing on the left, and then there's also a queen size that's in there. And basically, I love making scrap quilts that have more than one pattern in, or more than one block pattern in it, because every time you look at that quilt, you're seeing more of a secondary design pop out, and I love that. There is a very, very ugly, ugly fabric that has been used in this quilt. It's that peach. It was horrific, but it works out beautifully when you look at that finished quilt. I get a lot of compliments on that finished quilt, even though what I see is a really ugly peach fabric, but it worked out great. So don't be afraid to use your ugly fabrics is what I'm saying. But there's 4 different blocks here, and the quilt was put together with half square triangles, quarter square triangles, and 2 and 4 patch units. Just a lot of fun. Coming up, daisies. This is another great one. You're going to basically be using, the block is a daisy block. You're going to grab 4, like in the case of the burgundy block, I grabbed 4 squares that were burgundy. And then for each of those 4 squares, I snowballed 3 corners with a light square, and I snowballed 1 of those corners with a yellow. And I did that 4 times, and then I put the block together, and you create this beautiful little daisy. So easy. Same thing on the corner sashing. That's done just by adding those, snowballing the corners. And then I added a very large border on that. It really picked up the colors that were in the quilt. There is a faux flange binding on this quilt. I don't know if you can notice it real well, but it's right there. It is a machine. It's a machine quilted technique. I recommend you take a peek at it if you've never done it. It's a wonderful technique. And I do have a tutorial on my website. I also have a video tutorial on my YouTube channel for you to learn that. This is a quilt that I will be doing at Paducah in April. This is my Illusions quilt, and a very simple quilt. This is also in that patterns book, but it's sort of a 9-patch, not really a 9-patch, but basically you're putting the block together and you're going to cut it on the diagonal and pair it with a complement. So I've paired these with a blue and a light blue, a red and a light red, and then I've done ruler work and feather work throughout this quilt. But I love the movement on this. It's a beautiful quilt, and I enjoy just looking at it. Your eye just keeps meandering across it. It's a lot of fun. So if hopefully some of you get to come to Paducah in April, and maybe this is one of the classes that you'll take. Stars and Stripes, this is a great one to have in your home for any of the patriotic seasons. You can use the lights, the blues, and the reds as you're working through your stash and making this up. If you're wanting to learn to do the feather quilting on your quilts, you can, on either your long arm or on your domestic sewing machine. It's a great way to practice with these ginormous half square triangles, because basically you're making your stem, you can come back and then make your half square triangle, or excuse me, make your feathers here, and then you can come back here and make your feathers on this side. So it's a great way to travel. You've got some places where you can travel if you're not comfortable traveling back on the stem. But it's a great way to practice your feather quilting. Now, your scrap stash, when you get it cut, sorted, organized, and stored, it is such a valuable tool for you, and not just for scrap quilts. There's so much you can do with it. I love creating art quilts, and if you look at the back of this quilt here, there are 5-inch squares all the way up and down the back of this quilt. It's just a much more interesting background. They're called charm squares, or just 5-inch squares. It's more interesting to me than just a piece of fabric behind there. So I have played with my charm squares and made a background. Then for everything that I appliqued, instead of going to fat quarters and cutting into a fat quarter to get a flower, I simply go to the scrap bin. I find the appropriate size and value of whatever it is I want to cut out. In this case, I've got these little flowers. I probably grabbed 5-inch squares and cut out each of my appliques from the 5-inch squares. I could also add those little circles also, and I grabbed green, I'm sure, for the leaves. But it is a wonderful way to use your Speedy Solution scrap stash for applique without cutting into yardage or fat quarters. So I use it a lot for art quilts, and that's just one art quilt. There's so many different kinds that I have done. On the right-hand side, you'll see Danny Blue Eyes. This is my granddaughter. And if you want to take a picture of this frame here, this slide, this app right here, Photo Quilt app, that's the name of it. That's how it's spelled. I got this app on my iPhone, 5, 6, 7 years ago, and it pixelates pictures. So it will grab a photo from your photos, and it will pixelate. It will ask you how many fabrics you want to use. All of the quilts in this app are 50 by 60, so it's a big quilt. And then it creates the pattern for you. So Danny Blue Eyes was 3,500 1.5-inch squares. And I do have a tutorial in April of 2020. I've got a tutorial on my website, on my blog, that you can watch how that was put together. But it's fun, so you might want to check that out if you're interested in pixelating, doing some art quilts like that. And then you'll see the scrap stash and the garment. So my mother passed away, but I received her stash, and I took the stash and cut out drunkard's paths templates from her stash, and I used them in a garment. This is a I can't remember the name of the jacket. It slipped my mind. It'll come in a minute here. But I love it. And it's just a great memory of Mom. So those are just some ways that you can use your scrap stash. Here's another way that you can use your scrap stash. And this is fun to do with grandkids, with nieces and nephews, with students in your school. But I am making pictures. The picture quilts is basically what they are. And you can draw out your different parts and pieces, or go to Google and find some free art, some free clip art, and you can resize it, whatever size you want it to be, and have fun creating and designing art quilts. And then simply go to your scrap stash and find the appropriate size piece of fabric that you'll need, and you can use that to create all of your art quilts, your picture quilts. And so this one is Bailey on the left and Baxter on the right. This is another ugly fabric object lesson. This Baxter, I used, it was a garment fabric, a really atrocious looking, ugly piece of fabric, but it is absolutely perfect to represent Baxter's fur. It's just perfect. I don't know that I've ever used it for anything else, but it really worked well for him. So don't be afraid to use some of those ugly fabrics that you might have in your stash. So as you have watched this, I pray that you'll all begin your own journey in Speedy Solutions. It's so much fun. Just establish a time each week. You got to set that appointment up. If you don't set an appointment with yourself, you're never going to get your scrap stash cut, sorted, organized, and ready to use, as I've shared with you here. Then choose a pattern. Once it's done, choose a pattern and create your own beautiful scrappy quilt from your personal scrap stash. And as you're going through and cutting up remnants as you're working on projects, always keep up with it if you can. But remember to cut up squares, cut up strips in various sizes and values, cut up templates in the various values, and then use those crumbs. And I'm going to show you samples of all of this here in just a second. What we're going to do right now, these are some of the questions that I get from students all around the country. Maybe some of these questions you've written in the chat or you've written on a piece of paper and you want to ask me. So I've got this printed out and I am going to go to my tabletop now. I'm going to stop sharing. Well, actually, before I stop sharing, here's what I'm going to do. I am going to share one item here. All right, you were asking me, let me get rid of that one. No, I don't want that. Okay, can you all see my computer screen? Is that showing up for you? Can you shake your head if you see it? Can you see my website? Is my website showing up? My screen sharing is paused. Why? Why is my screen sharing paused? Let me try it again. Do you see it yet? Can you see my website? It says here that you can now see it. So Sue, can you shake your head if it's showing up? Okay, I see you here in the thing. So, all right, this is my website. Some of you are asking where those mystery quilt patterns were that are free. So if you go into the gallery here, I've got a bunch of art quilts there, scrap quilts, landscape quilts, template quilts, and these are the mystery quilts. And then there are links along here that will take you to the blog where you can actually grab those. So there's Purple Passion. This is also the Purple Passion up here. That's very scrappy. Here is the Purple Passion that is in purple. That was the first one I had done. And it's more of a purple. So I'm using, I think, 3 or 4 different fabrics in that. This one here, this Spinning Windows and this Shades of Spring, that's another mystery quilt. It's the very same block, but we are putting different values in different parts of the block. So in this case, it looks like a spinning attic window. Here, it looks like diagonal rows. So it's amazing. There's just a lot out there for you, and these are all free patterns for you. If you're interested in any of those, if you want to use them in your quilt guild, you're welcome to do that. So I just wanted to share with you where that was before I got out of this. Now what I'm going to do, let me quick look in the chat and see if there's any new. Darylyn, you had asked how to get the free pattern. So that was where it was in the mystery quilt area there. Carol says that she sometimes uses other templates such as the tumbler to start gathering enough scrap to make something someday. Yep, that's great. Excellent. Okay. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to close that. I am going to remove the spotlight from here. I'm going to find my desktop. Okay, can you all see my desktop? Can you see my hand moving around? Can you shake your head? Okay, it looks like some of you are shaking your head, so this is good. This is good. Okay, so this is the Bachelor in Love quilt that we'll be working on. I had done mine, as I had said, in the pinks and grays a while ago, probably 3 or 4 years ago. But I'm going to be working in some scrappy colors today. Now, what I want to share with you, let me move this. Okay, some of the questions, I'm going to have the questions here, so I've got them. What size squares should I cut? So when you start when you start cutting your scrap stash, it all depends on whether or not you've actually got anything cut. So if you, and I see Rhonda has a question there too. I'll get to that in just a minute. If you do not have a scrap stash at all cut up, nothing is done, nothing at all, you're just getting started. What I would do is what I do personally, and that is cut up a variety of squares in different sizes. I like to start at 1.5 inches and go up to 10 inches. But maybe you don't want to have all of that. The reason I do love all of those sizes is because I love to design quilts, and I will use all of those sizes as I'm designing quilts. It gives me more opportunities to create more fun quilts. Maybe you don't want to have that much in your stash. Maybe you want to start with 2.5-inch squares, 3.5-inch squares, 5-inch squares, and I would always recommend 10-inch squares. That's really popular, and I'll show you why here in a minute. But start with that, and then for your strips, do 1.5 and 2.5-inch strips. Start there. That gives you a really good starting point that will take care of a lot of different quilt patterns. So that's where you could start if you wanted to. But if you want to have a variety, follow my Lori scrapping rule, where every scrap that you place on the table, you cut the largest piece possible and just keep cutting the largest piece possible until you have a variety of things from it, and then you just have leftovers. Okay, now, I have people ask me, should I just cut squares, or should I cut strips, or should I cut templates? What should I cut? I would do a variety of all of it. I think it's very helpful to have a variety of all of it, especially if you have a lot of scraps that you need to get cut up. If you don't have a lot of scraps, stick with squares and strips. If you do have a lot of scraps, do the squares, the strips, and the templates, and that will help you get a lot put together very quickly. Now, I wanted to also show you, before I open this up, I want to show you this. So I have these are foam boards. You get them at a Dollar Tree, or you can get them at Walmart. I was getting these for $1.25 at the Dollar Tree. I don't know if they've gone up or not, but I've got some white ones and some black ones. But I have taken the measurements and I've taped them on here. And so this is for squares up to 6.5 inches. This one right here is for strips. These are the strips that I'll cut. And this is for templates. And as I cut them, I mentioned to you to place them under the appropriate size. And that's what I'll do then. I'll have these boards on another area away from my cutting table. And as I cut them, I will place them where they belong. And then I'll have stacks of them that are in all of these sizes. Once it's cut, then I'll go through by size and I will organize each size. I'll take the 1.5-inch squares, I'll organize them by light, medium, and dark, and I'll put them in the appropriate bin. I'll do the same for every single one of these stacks. I'll organize them by value, put them in the appropriate bin. I'll do the same with my strips and my templates. And for my strips, I guess I didn't bring one over here, but I just simply lay them in the tub lengthwise, lights, mediums, and darks. That's how I store mine. You could put yours in a dresser drawer. It really doesn't matter. Here are my 3.5-inch squares, and I have lights, and these are all the mediums. You're always going to have more mediums than you have lights and darks. It seems to be the way it is. And these are darks. This is where I store my, these are all upholstery and garment fabrics. There's some satin, corduroy, felt, all kinds of interesting things. This is what I will use for art quilts. So I just have them on the side like that. So when I need a specific item for an art quilt, I'll go there and grab that. Now, these squares are not something that I would put in a quilt that is going to be washed. My art quilts do not get washed. They would get dry cleaned or air dried, or aired out outside, but they would not ever get dirty that I'd need to wash them. And these fabrics, obviously, you would not want to wash those. So that's where I keep those. Let's see. I wanted to mention, okay, let me go to the next thing. What is the most popular size or type to cut? Again, 2.5, 3.5, 5-inch squares, and then 2.5-inch strips. I would, if you have nothing and you just want to get started, those are great options right there. Let's talk about value. And I'm going to place some of these crazy little guys down here. Now, can you see these? Yes, I think you can. So these two squares have a lot of white in them, but they also have the same amount of dark color in them. I would throw these in the mediums pile. And then I would let the value, I'd let the other squares dictate to them when I pull later on what they should end up being. That's how I handle things like this. Same way here. This guy, I'd throw him in the mediums. He might end up being a dark. Maybe everything else that's going to be around him is going to tell him he's a dark. You just have to wait and see. Again, value is relative. Value is relative to what it's surrounded by. Here's another little girl. She's a cutie, but she's got a lot going on there. And I would throw this in the mediums. There is a white there. And it should work beautifully as a medium. But again, the other fabrics that are around it are going to dictate what it should be. And you could also cut it smaller. And then you're going to have specific hues, and values when you do that. Same thing with these guys right here. You could throw them in the mediums or in the darks, or you could cut them smaller, and then that smaller section is going to be more obviously a light, a medium, or a dark. So those are some things that you could keep in mind for that. All right, I wanted to share, here we go. I'm going to jump down to this. When I have leftover quarter square triangles, half square triangles, snowballed squares, and these are 9-patch units. When I have these leftover units, I save them. I put them in the appropriate size bin. Again, I'll tuck them on the side of the bin because I'll use those. I'll find something in some way that I can actually use those leftover ones. And these, I believe, are all 3.5 inches. Yes, so I'm going to put all of these in my 3.5-inch container, especially half square triangles. You can absolutely find places to use those. And so I'll take all of those and I'll put that in my 3.5-inch container. So I wanted to make sure you're aware of that. I talked about 10-inch squares. Where'd it go? Here it is. On this past Monday, I did a video on my YouTube channel where it's called I think it's called the Magic Half Square Triangle, something like that. I'll have to look up the name of it. But it's I think it's scrappy layer cake. 10-inch squares are also known as layer cakes. I think that's Moda's name for a 10-inch square. All of these started out as a 10-inch square. It is a really easy pattern. There are so many disappearing block patterns that use 10-inch squares. So I highly recommend, if you have large chunks of scraps as you're going through your stash and you can cut out 10-inch squares and lights, mediums, and darks, do that. Definitely do that because there's so many great patterns. In fact, I had actually made up 15 queen size camp quilts for our camp, for the cabins, using disappearing block patterns and big, large 10-inch squares. So it's something that you can put together quilts very quickly. And if you want to see how this one is done, it's Monday's video. So it's my most recent video. So go out and check that out and you can see how this is done. And this is done with 10-inch squares. All right. Now, when each of us, I've got a lot of stuff over here to pull. When each of us has our scrap stash, If you buy your own fabric, if all of the fabric that you have is something that you have purchased, more than likely it's something you like, and often it's either a muddy or a clean fabric. And I'm going to share with you what I mean by that. In my case, I have received entire stashes from women who have either passed or they are not able to quilt anymore. So I have tons of fabric that I personally don't really care for, nor would I buy it, but it works beautifully in my scrap stash. So I have a lot of both muddy and clean fabrics in my stash. Let me share with you what I mean by that. Okay, let's look at some muddy fabrics first. If you look at these fabrics right here on this cardstock, they all, and they're really wrinkled, sorry, but they all have a yellow undertone, kind of a beigey yellow creamish undertone, right? I call that muddy. It's kind of like primitive. Are you familiar with the primitive fabrics that are out there? When I see primitive, I think more of that muddy look. It's a soft look like that, right? That is muddy. And then here we have clean. And what I mean by clean is that all of this has a white base, a crisp, clear white base. And so these are clean fabrics. These are muddy fabrics. Do I mix them in my quilts? I absolutely do. I love it. I mix it. You might hate that. You might not like that look at all. So then you wouldn't want to do that. If you've made up a scrappy block and there's just something about it that bothers you, that's probably what you've done. You've probably got something in there that's either muddy or clean that doesn't go with the rest of it. So keep that in mind as you're scrapping up your blocks. If you want them to be all clean, all muddy, that's fabulous. These are your quilts. You make them so that you love them. For me, I love all of it, and I do mix all of it. If you look at those 12 patterns that I just shared with you in my patterns book, you will see both muddy and clean scraps in all of them. So that's what I mean by muddy and clean. Hopefully that helps you. Does anybody have a question on that? Let me look in the chat and see if any. Let's see. How do you organize when your colors range from the dirty to clean? I don't worry about it. Personally, I actually, Rhonda, this is your question. I put all of my scraps in there by value, light, medium, dark. Some of the lights are going to be muddy and clean. Some of the mediums are going to be muddy and clean. Some of the darks are going to be muddy and clean. I don't separate mine. You might choose to do that, but I do not. Let's see, I have an ugly 108-inch green batik looking fabric. How can I use it? You could cut that. If you don't want to use it for backing, you could cut it up into 10-inch squares and add it with some of your scraps and use it as the focal fabric for maybe a disappearing block project. So that would be fun to do that. Let me see what other questions what do you mean by templates? Oh, templates. Let me grab some templates here. Okay, do I have templates? Or do I have templates? So when I'm talking templates, so here we have a tumbler. Here we have a Dresden. Here we have an orange peel. Here we have a rhombus or a diamond. What's really great about the rhombus is that you're getting 2 in 1 in this template. There is a cut line right here, which gives you that 1/4-inch seam allowance. So you can line up that cut line on the bottom of your fabric and you can actually cut out triangles. And then if you lay it across a strip, you can cut out rhombuses. And there are no Y seams with this, which is great. So that's a template. And it's just on and on and on. I've got so many of them. But that's what I mean by templates. Does that make sense? So I do that with my templates, or I cut up my scrap stash with these templates. Let me move this off of here. I just dropped one. I don't know where it went. We'll get it later. Let's see. I meant on your cutting when sorting. Yes, those were the templates. Oh, I meant on your cutting. Darylyn, can you unmute yourself and explain that question? I might have missed something there.
When you were cutting your 1 inch squares and 1.5 and 2.5 and all that, and then sorting them, you had a place where you had templates.
Yes, that's correct. And those bright green templates there, I use those to cut up my scraps. I will cut lights, mediums, and darks with those templates. Those are template rulers. And then I will sort them based upon their value, light, medium, dark, and put them in individual containers so that I can make a quilt, let's say with the Dresden or with the tumbler. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Carolyn has a question here. She calls it her bee quilt. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so Carol has a suggestion here. She planned what she wanted to do with scraps. Now, I call that my bee quilt, meaning while I'm working on another quilt, I use the scraps for leaders and enders. I love leaders and enders. That's very, very helpful. I have a sample that she can show us, and definitely hang on to that sample. And Carol, please remind me. I'm going to continue doing the rest of these that I have here on my tabletop, but I do want you to show that so everybody can see it in just a minute. Whoops. Got to get back to my Zoom. Okay. And what was the other? I think that answers all of the questions on chat. If I missed your question on chat, tell me, holler out at me. Okay, the other thing I wanted to mention, I talked about, I do not separate my quilting cottons or my batiks. And by that, I mean, my quilting cottons can be themed. They can be harvest. They can be children's. They can be Christmas. They can be Thanksgiving. They can be, or they can just be regular quilting cottons, or they can be batiks. I will use all of that in the same quilt. I will do that. You might not like to, but I love it. In fact, you saw many of the quilts that you saw on this presentation were of various themes. I showed you how I stored those leftover half square triangles in quarter square. Crumb baskets. I wanted to share with you the crumb basket. Put this over here. Are many of you familiar with crumb quilting? If not, I do encourage you to go out to my playlist and check it out. So as I'm going through and scrapping up my stash, or even when I finish a project maybe and I've got some leftover weird pieces, I'll throw it in the lights. This one is a strip piece that I just threw in here. I'll throw it in the lights, or I'll throw it in the darks, and then I will make crumb quilts with this. And this is very addicting, and it's a great way to use up all those leftover pieces. So I hope that you'll check out that playlist, and let me show you. Here are some crumb blocks that I've created. So you start in the center here, and you just keep sewing things around it until the piece gets big enough that you can cut out a square. And my playlist really goes into detail on this. I don't necessarily use a muslin or a paper foundation. I just start sewing it together. And my playlist will tell you all about the crumb piecing that I do. Here's a block that I've cut. And here is another block that I've cut. In that playlist, you'll learn how I use adding machine tape to put together all kinds of crumb pieces to create some borders and things. So that's another thing you'll learn. I store some of this in this purse, but this is a project that you'll see out there, and this is using crumbs for the entire outside edge, and then prairie points. These are squares that I've pulled from my Speedy Solution scrap stash. And we talked about tumblers here. Or actually, these are hexes. These are hexes. So I had cut up a bunch of hexes in my stash. I have a video tutorial on this that teaches you how to put it together. So I've got a lot of hexes in the light and the dark. And my video tutorial teaches you how to literally quilt this whole thing, either on your domestic or your home or your long arm, without ever breaking your thread. It's just a fun way to put this together. It's a great project, and it works up, depending on the values and the colors in your borders, how fun it would be for a child's quilt or even just a little wall hanging. So that's a template quilt. I mentioned also about the crumb quilt projects that are out there. This is available for you on my playlist, the crumb quilt playlist. I teach you how to crumb up the fabric, cut out your drunkard's paths units. I teach you how to make the adding machine borders here inside and outside. I teach you the trapunto and how to do that. All of that is in that video series of this quilt, and that's on my playlist, my crumb quilt playlist. And then the last one I wanted to share with you that's crumb quilting. This is the table runner. And again, we start out in the center. We work on the flowers here with the crumbs. We work on the borders, and it's all quilt as you go. This whole thing is quilt as you go. That's another free project that's out there for you to take a look at, and you can work right along with me on that project. All right, now I show there's two new. All right, Sherry says, I've been saving uncut scraps and stored them by color. To be clear, you divide your scraps by size and value, not color. That is correct. I store mine all by value. So my patterns are all written so that all you need to do is grab stacks of lights, mediums, or darks instead of having to grab colors. But you can certainly let me spotlight this. You can certainly, if you want, use my patterns and actually grab fabric yardage that you have, like maybe a dark blue for the dark, and maybe a pale blue for the medium, and then maybe a light white for the light value. You can do that. So there's different ways that you can use my patterns. All right, her next one. So do you use square template for your basic cutting, or do you use one or two major rulers? The ruler I find myself using often is that 6.5-inch ruler, because with the remnants that I have, it works beautifully on there. And I cut anywhere from 1.5-inch squares all the way up to 6.5-inch squares. When I'm doing strips, I use my longer strip rulers, depending on the size that I want. And I like 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3.5-inch strip sizes. Or do you use odd-shaped templates only on the odd-shaped fabric pieces? With the templates, you should also keep your template on the straight of grain. Typically, anytime you cut out, let me grab a template again. And I'm going to spotlight my... Okay. When you're using templates and you're cutting, and I do have a YouTube video that does teach you how to scrap up your stash with strips and using templates. When you scrap up your stash using these templates, most of your templates have a straight edge somewhere. What I would do is measure, and it looks like this one is a 5-inch wide. From the straight edge to the straight edge, it's 5 inches. I would cut a 5-inch strip, and then I would keep flipping this template across that strip and cut it. Does that make sense? So that's how I would cut it. And that way, this template is on the straight of grain. That's important. Now, here's a weird one. This one's all bias, and it's going to be biased no matter what you do. So this one, it doesn't really matter, I guess. I mean, I would try to get it on the straight of grain as much as possible, so it doesn't get real wonky. But this one is going to have a lot of bias on it. But I would first, with all my templates, I strip up the fabric and then I cut my templates from whatever size strip is required to cut that template. I hope that makes sense. Straight of grain, beginner. Okay, let's see here. Let me grab a bigger piece of fabric so you can at least see it. Okay. All right. Here we've got a big piece of fabric. All right. On the edge here, you can see that it's been ripped. And if you can pull the entire thread off, you know that is the straight of grain because that entire thread just came right off that entire edge. See that? So that means that's on the straight of grain. Let me get my pink. I think you can see it better if I put it on this pink. But that shows where the straight of grain is. Now, let's say that I don't have an edge like that. Then what I'm going to do is really study that fabric. And you want to go to the reverse side, the back side, the wrong side of the fabric, because you can more easily see these grains. This is the crosswise and this is the lengthwise. And so try and get your ruler. Let me find a ruler. As close as possible on that straight of grain and make your first cut. And then that you'll know is on the straight of grain. So there's a couple of ways you can find it by either trying to pull. As a garment sewer, sometimes we would want to square up our fabric and we'd take a piece of a thread here and just pull on it. I just don't know if you're going to be able to see this on screen or not. And I've pulled across here. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see this, but it shows here where that thread, that's the straight of grain. It's pulled the colors across. So I know that's where the straight of grain is because I've pulled one thread and I just kept tugging at it until it started pulling through. So then what I could do is get my ruler on that thread and cut, and then I would have it on the straight of grain. So those are some various ways to do that. How do you decide when to cut a template or when to cut squares? If you're just getting started, start with squares and strips. And once you have a stash going or you've got something to work with, then go ahead and start cutting your templates, whatever templates you might have. But, and I had such a large amount, if you saw the photos at the beginning of the presentation, I had such a large amount of scraps in those bins that I was able to do all of it, squares and templates and strips. And I could do a lot of all of it so that it produced enough to create actual quilts. So, all right. Any other questions there? All right, what I might do now, and if anybody has not written anything in a chat and they want to just holler out and ask me the question, just go ahead and do that, please. Go ahead and ask.
While you're setting up for the next thing, you want me to, I have just a couple of comments to other quilters.
Yes. Is this Carol?
Yes, it's Carol.
Okay.
Yes, I had seen you several years ago. It's very inspiring. Okay. But I don't have the real estate in my quilt room for some of these ideas. And I used to be very rigid. All right. Thinking, oh, I got to do it. But then when I moved and I have enough fabric to open up a store. All right. Then I was like, what was I going to do with this? And some people sorted by color or value. And I thought, well, if I pull out a quilt pattern and then it says get this yardage and this yardage, I thought now I have to go through all these bins. So you have to find yourself and how you want to organize your room.
Yep.
And so instead, I organized all of my fabric. I had my kids bring all of my totes in. And it was a giant mess in the beginning, but I sorted them by how much fabric. So if I'm working on a quilt and I need 1.5 yards of something, I go to that bin to see if I have a yard and a half.
Hmm.
Now, on the other thing, when you talk about cutting up all your stuff, I don't have the real estate either to have it sorted out as you suggested because that was stressful for me. But I have bins over my cutting tables.
Mhm.
So I cut and throw it in the bin. Cut
There you
and throw
go.
it.
See,
All
we
right.
can all find the
So
ways that work best for us.
you got to find where you're at. So very
And you
much
had
with
you had
that.
a sample you were going to show us.
Right. So this is just my 2-inch squares.
Huh?
Okay. So when I'm going to work on another quilt, I run these through. They become leaders and enders.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Then the leader and under turns into, well, it's missing one more block. Oh, where there? Oh, there we go. Then I make this strip.
Mhm.
Then from there, this took maybe a little bit. Like I spent an afternoon deciding what am I going to do with my strips. I have a huge tote here of 1-inch squares. So, you had to accumulate enough scraps to start a project.
To start something. Yep.
So now these are a
Look at
bunch
that.
of 5-inch,
Mhm.
5-inch that eventually will become a block.
Mm-hmm.
Then every once in a while, when I get enough strips, I make a block.
Together. There
Okay.
you go.
And then that gets tossed back into
Uh-huh.
another. And when I get enough blocks made,
And put it together in a quilt.
yes.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
see, I can't, for me, I can't do a whole quilt of scrappy stuff. So I came up with sashing
You
and
need a
so
resting point for your eyes. Yeah. Hmm.
yes.
Everybody does need there
But what
needs
I
to be a
did,
resting point for our eyes on a scrappy
yeah.
quilt.
So in another tote, now that this has been started, I made sure I did put enough of this background fabric and my cornerstones reserved in that bin. So now
You don't use it up.
but this quilt is happening while I'm making all other things. So if I have the right thread color in my machine,
Uh-huh.
I go to whatever one I want. But what I'm saying is on the other thing, give yourself some freedom to be
Yes.
a happy quilter. We all have
Absolutely.
our own things, and it took more than a decade for me to get to that point.
To figure it all out, right? And that's what I had
Yes,
mentioned.
and
You've
it's
got to
living.
find the plan that works best for you. I'm giving you an overview of, what's working for me and so forth, but you do need to come up with something that really works well for you. And those are some great ideas. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Carol. And then Rhonda had a question. She raised her hand. What is your question, Rhonda? I'm going to spotlight you.
I've done something similar, and I've
Mhm.
got stacks of this
There we
sort of.
go.
My
Uh-huh.
question is, would it be possible to put a 10-inch strip over the top of it and cut it into half squares?
Oh, absolutely. I've done a pattern like that. Yep. Yeah.
Excellent.
Uh-huh.
I wasn't sure, because
Absolutely.
then you're going to be on the bar.
Yeah, you are going to be on the bias, so be aware of that. Whenever you do a disappearing block pattern, you do end up with a lot of bias. So be aware of that. So, be careful because the outside edges then, instead of being on the straight of grain, now all of your outside edges are on the bias. So you maybe want to stay stitch each block like an eighth of an inch from the corner. And that way, until you get all of your blocks done, those blocks will remain nice and not get all wonky and stretched out. So I do like to stay stitch the outside edges of blocks that end up with the bias on the outside.
Oh,
That makes
terrific.
sense?
Thanks
Yep.
for that.
Yep, that'll work. Absolutely. Okay, was there anybody else that had a question
I'm
here?
sorry, I couldn't get my hand to raise for some reason.
Okay. All right.
I have ADHD, and when I get in the room with all of my fabric, my brain just kind of shorts and I'm stuck. And I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? So
Okay.
do you have a suggestion, just a starting point?
So are you asking about how to get it scrapped up or how to use what you've already scrapped up?
I'm just asking about how to get a starting point, how to start.
What I would do is go into your stash and find all of those stash. Like you saw those tubs at the beginning of the presentation. I had huge tubs, and I had more than 3 huge tubs of remnants. Okay, that was overwhelming to me. And I would hide them a lot because I knew I wanted to use them. I knew I could use them. I just didn't know how. But pull them out, and one by one, maybe just grab a big handful, take it to your iron, press it, get it starched, pressed, bring it to your cutting table and start cutting. Maybe you only want to cut 1.5, 2.5, and 5-inch squares or something, whatever you want to get started on, and then start cutting and put those aside. Then go grab another bundle in your arms, take it to your iron, get it pressed and starched, bring it to your table and start cutting and pressing. That is how I would do it. And I would do that in 15 or 30-minute segments. Remember we talked about making an appointment? If you have a lot of stash that's overwhelming to you, make maybe every night 15 minutes. I'm going to go downstairs from 7 to 7:15, and I say downstairs because that's where my quilting studio is, but I'm going to go down and I am going to press and cut up 15 minutes worth of scraps, and do that every single night or 2 nights a week or 2 afternoons a week or whatever works for your schedule. But then you're eating away at it a little bit at a time, and it's not so overwhelming. I think
Okay.
that might help.
And I have one more question.
Yeah.
So I also have a lot of yardage. So should I start cutting that yardage into 10-inch squares? Or should I just leave it in 1-yard strips?
Well, that depends on patterns. Oh, that was one thing I meant to mention from that sheet that I had, and I missed that question. So let's say you're not really sure where to start in the pattern. So first of all, do you know that there are certain patterns that you want to be making in the next 2 months? Grab those patterns, identify what you need from those patterns, and whether it's strips, squares, a combination of both, what sizes they are, and then cut that. Focus on that. That's what I do when every time I need to cut something up anymore, I go to my stash and I see, what do I have? What am I low on? What do I need to start cutting up? What's in here that do I need light 3.5-inch squares? Do I need dark 2.5-inch strips? And that's what I'll focus on. But my stash is pretty much already there. It's ready to go. So I'll go to my stash first, see what I'm low on, and then I'll cut. If you don't even have a stash, go to some patterns that you know that you want to start in the next few months. Identify exactly what you need for those patterns, and then focus on that as you're cutting your stash.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions there? All right, now I am going to that one. Okay, can you see my tabletop? All right, I want to get started and kind of show you what we're going to do here for the Bachelor in Love quilt. I'm move my stuff out of the way. So you should either have this in paper form or on your iPad or whatever. And this is how it could look. Now, I did want to point out, there are a total of 9 blocks. It's basically a big 9-patch quilt, if you will. You could, if you wanted, you could make 5 of these and make 4 of them in the corner and 1 in the center. And then you just have 4 of the Bachelor in Love blocks. You can do whatever you want. Have fun with it. Experiment, play. But that is how the quilt goes together. Now, when you look at, I have to turn this so I can actually read what I've got here, but what you're going to pull from your stash is for each block, for every single block that we're making, and this is the block right here, you're going to pull 4 of the 4-inch squares that are light, 4 that are medium, and 4 that are dark. And then you're going to pull 4 that are medium 3.5-inch squares. And these 4 medium 3.5-inch squares go right in these positions. And they're the only actual squares in the whole block. The rest of it is all half square triangle units. And where did I put? Here we go. Here's another one that I have pulled. And so what you're going to do, you are going to pair up the 4-inch squares. And I'm going to lay out the lights here. Okay, so I have some lights there. You're going to pair up 2 of these lights with darks. So I've got a light and a dark, right sides together. I'm going to draw a line on those here in a minute, and we're going to create half square triangles. I am going to pair up 2 of the mediums with these lights, right sides together. And then the last thing I'm going to do is pair up 2 of these mediums with the darks, right sides together. Flip them all over here, and we're going to draw diagonal lines on all of those. For each of these, for each pair, you end up with 2 half square triangle units. So we'll end up with 4 that are light dark. We'll end up with 4 that are dark medium, and we'll end up with 4 that are medium light half square triangles. And let me show you what I mean by that. So I went through and I paired all of these up for another, this is another set. I drew my lines, and I would do all of it at the same time. For every single block, it just goes so much quicker. I call it assembly line. You can call it chain piecing, whatever you want to call it. But I have simply paired up all of my light darks, all of my dark mediums, and all of my light mediums. And you can also change out the value. You don't have to follow this value. You can swap all that around. Wherever the light is can be a dark. Wherever the dark is can be a light. Whatever you choose to do, have fun, be creative. But basically following this pattern, I've done that. So I've sewn a scant 1/4 inch down this whole line, turned, and I've sewn a scant 1/4 inch the whole way back. And then you're simply going to cut them apart. Let me grab my go. And the reason I sew a scant 1/4 inch is because there is the turn of fabric. Oh, let me get this here. You're going to be pressing them, either press your seams open or to the dark. And there's that turn of fabric, which eats up about 2 strands of thread. So if you're sewing right at a 1/4 inch seam allowance on each side, your half square triangle is going to be a little bit smaller. So I like to do a scant 1/4, and then you can either press it open and use a square up ruler, which you'll line up that 45 line on the seam and trim it down to 3.5 inches. Each of these has to be trimmed to 3.5 inches. If you have the Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer or others, the Block Lock, there's so many different types of trimmers that you might have. Then with the Clearly Perfect slotted trimmer, you do not press it open yet. You keep it as a triangle. And then you line up the 3.5 inch stitch line on the stitch line right there. And then you cut to trim it to 3.5 inches. And then it also has these little areas here that you can get rid of the dog ears. So we got rid of the dog ears there. And then you open it up and then you press it. And for me, I have been, over the last year, pressing my seam allowances open more often than not. But you can do it either way. You can either press it to the dark or press them open. I do like to have a stitch length that is a little bit shorter if I press my seam allowances open in my stitching. Probably a 2.2 to a 2.4. I'll make it just a little bit shorter. So then you're going to press all of these open. And let me cut these, and I'm going to show you how top of this block will go together. Now, I am not going to press these because that would take too long and I'd go away from you here, but I want you to see. I'm going to just kind of finger press, and we're going to pretend that I have squared up every one of these, but I'm going to lay out the top half of the block. So let's pretend you don't see any of these dog ears, that everything is pressed beautifully, and they have all been squared up to 3.5 inches. I'm missing one, aren't I? No, I guess not. I'm good. Okay. So to lay out your block, way here, we're going to follow your diagram, and the outer corners, I can lay out the top part of my block, and I guess it's upside down for you. For me, this is the top, but for you, it's the bottom. So those are the outer two corners. Then I need to put a medium dark next here. And then I need to put this. And this is where it's very evident that none of these half square triangles have yet been squared up, because they all have to be 3.5 inches to match this 3.5 inch square right here. All right, next we're going to do a dark here. Now we are going to put this like this, and I'm missing one. Where'd it go? I don't know what I did with it. Anyway, it would, oh, I'm fine here. It's this. I'm not missing it. All right, so that is the top section of that block. And it's basically the bottom section as well. You're duplicating it, but you're flipping it around. So that is how it's going to be put together. I like to web my blocks together when I sew them. And by that, I take it to my sewing machine. I lay it out just as it is. And so let's just lay these in here for the sake of having something in there. These are not in the right position and they're not exactly what I need. But let's say this is my block. I'm going to take it to my sewing machine, and I am going to web all of the rows together, or the columns together, and then the rows together. I'm going to start over here. I'm going to flip this on top here. And of course, this one has been trimmed. The rest of this has not. I'd start sewing 1/4 inch down there. I'd grab the next two, flip it over, continue sewing. So it's webbed right there. Continue sewing, and this is webbed. So this whole first two columns are now webbed together. Then I continue flipping this over on top of here, sewing, flipping this over on top of here and sewing, and the same thing. Then all three of the first columns are webbed together, and do the same with the last. That helps so that the units within the square, the block, don't get all mixed up. I love using this. And I have a video that walks you through this much better than this quick little review here. On my YouTube channel, there's how to web a block. I do the same thing when I web my quilts, the actual quilts. So I'll lay the blocks on my design wall behind me or on the floor, and I'll start with the top left block and web the first two rows together, or columns together, excuse me. Then I'll add that third column, and then I'll add the fourth column, or however many columns there are in the quilt. And then I will sew the rows together. And that way everything stays in its place. It doesn't get cattywampus. All the parts and pieces stay exactly where they should be. And that video does explain that to you much easier. So hopefully you'll take a moment sometime and do that. So does anybody have a block, the Bachelor in Love block, done or started that we can see what you've done? Let me see here. Anybody? I'm looking around here. You can show us if you do. Not yet? Okay. All right. Well, I am basically using these colors, and it's going to be a very scrappy one. It's going to be mostly blues and reds and creams in this scrappy black. But you can go through and just grab a variety of different colors. As you see with this quilt on the wall, let me spotlight that. As you can see with the quilt on the wall, this is my Purple Passion Mystery Quilt. But each block is just literally using darks, lights, and mediums in the specific position. And there's nothing about it that is the same anywhere. It's very scrappy. And do you notice that I have a lot of muddy and clean fabrics in this that I've used? And I love it. I enjoy that. A lot of the little diagonal areas here, they have more of the clean, and that just happened to be that way. I didn't intentionally do that. I simply pulled lights, mediums, and darks and put that together. And then I used some remnants that were a purple remnant here and a purple remnant here in cream for the borders. In my mystery quilts, I always like to teach a pieced border of some sort. So every one of those does have a pieced border for you to try. You don't have to use those. You can just use regular borders if you choose, but that's available if you'd like it. And this one happens to be the half diamonds there. But as you can see, it's very, very scrappy. And then this one is not. It's basically specific fabrics that I have cut up and used specifically for light, medium, and dark. So that is something that you can do. Any other questions that we might have on this block? Let me remove the spotlight. And you can absolutely unmute yourself and just holler out your question. Anybody working on the block right now? Or are you just kind of watching right now and you're going to make them later? I think a lot of you.
I'm working on one.
Somebody said I'm working on one. Who was that?
It's me. I don't have my video on, but
And
where's the video?
What's your name? Oh,
Leanne.
Hi there. Okay, she's up there in the corner. I see you now.
Yep. So right now I did the half square triangles, and I'm just pressing them for the first block. That's where I'm at.
Excellent. Can we see some of your fabrics?
Sure. If I can figure out how to turn my camera around.
That's fine. Not to worry. If you can pull some up to show us,
Okay,
that's great.
well,
If not, no worries.
So there's my medium and my light.
Here we go. Yeah.
And dark and a light.
Yep.
And then I also have this one for a medium. So
there we go. Love it. Yep. So yours is going to be beautiful in pinks and burgundies, right?
Yeah, basically I was just going through my fat quarter stash. So like I found the burgundies that go together, and I found a couple of mediums, and the light is actually a half yard I had. So the light is all the same, but everything else is just kind of
wonderful.
Coordinating, scrappy.
There you go. And that brings up a point. If you want something in your quilt that helps give a landing place, on the back quilt, it's extremely scrappy in the center. But that outside border gives a landing place for the eyes, and then your eye can wander in and check out some other things. Or within the quilt itself, Carol had showed us where she did sashing that was all white sashing or maybe a colored sashing. So that's an option for you where you've got a landing place for your eye to kind of rest. And that resting place can be found all the way across the quilt. But otherwise there's lots of scraps in there. So that's something to keep in mind if you don't like the real scrappy look. So any other questions there? All right, I am going to bring up the hearts and flowers block then. All right, I went through my pages here to see if anybody had a hand raised, and I didn't see anything. And as you have questions, please don't hesitate just to unmute yourself and ask. All right, I'm going to put this away for right now. We'll finish this later. All right.
Laurie,
Yes.
it's just it's Rhonda.
Yes.
I just have a question about opening your seams. When you're quilting, do you have any problems with ditch stitching?
With stitching popping open.
Yeah.
Um, I don't actually, but if you use a shorter seam stitch, that might help if you are experiencing that. And when you're doing the assembly line stitching, you're stitching off of a block and onto another, unit. And so there are some threads that continue there. And so I normally just, cut in between those threads, and that helps so that it's not popping open. And then, of course, all of those are going to be intersected when you put it together in a block. Those seams are all going to be intersected in some way, which will stop any further popping if one started to pop open. But maybe try shorter seams, stitch lengths.
I meant when you're actually doing the quilting.
Okay.
Stitching the ditch.
I've heard of people mentioning that, but I've never had that happen to me.
Okay.
I've never had an issue with it. So, but I have heard people mention that. And again, they have also mentioned that in order to try to prevent that, use a shorter stitch length so that when it does get up to the long arm or the domestic sewing machine and you're quilting in the ditch, it won't pop open. So that would be my recommendation in that. Any other questions? Just holler out if you have a question. All right. So here we are going to work on the hearts and flowers block. Oh, let me spotlight this again. Let me find, where is that? I think it's on the next page here. Here it is. All right. I should have spotlighted it for y'all. Hopefully you all can see it now. So here is the pattern. And first of all, we all need a 12.5-inch square, a background square. And I have just chosen one here. What I like to do whenever I'm doing applique onto a large square, I like to press a crease horizontally, vertically, and diagonally. It just helps me when I get to placing my elements on that square, I can more easily make sure it's even, that everything is placed in the same location throughout the whole block. So just wanted to point that out. Now, what we're going to be doing is taking our templates and make sure when you print the templates that you print them at 100% so that they're the same size. Now, if you forget, and it's most printers default to fit to page, which is about, 85% or something like that. In the case of this applique, that's really not too serious. It's going to be a little bit smaller than the finished one that I have here, but most of the time, whenever you're printing templates, always try to just check that before you hit print, you look to see what your printer is set at, because it just simply mine always defaults to fit to page. So I always tell it actual size. I want the actual size. So that's what we've got here. I do have the 1/4-inch seam allowances included in here if you like to needle turn. I don't have the time to do needle turn, although it's great to take needle turn projects with you on road trips or to the doctor's office, etc. But typically I do paperback fusible when I do applique. So the thing that I'm going to do is trace these, and on here you'll see for the heart, you need to trace it ×4. For the little, what do you call this? This thing underneath the heart is going to be, in my case, I'm going to make it green, and I need 4 of those. I need 4 of these buds, and I need 4 of the stems, and I need 8 leaves. And so what I'm going to do when I trace this is a paper-backed fusible, and there's tons of varieties out there. There's so many, but I like to use a lightweight because in some cases you're adding 1, 2, or 3 layers of this on top of each other, and that gets really thick when you're doing your applique and when you're maybe doing any machine quilting if you happen to quilt over it. But what I'm going to do is try to pencil them in all in the same area. So all of these are, which is red, these red hearts, I'm going to pencil in together. These are red, and I'm going to pencil those together. And then everything else is green. And I just put the letter of whatever color it's going to be. And then using a paper scissors, I am going to loosely cut out. And here's what I'm going to do. I've grabbed some 5-inch red squares. I'm going to loosely cut around a heart and a square, because that's going to be the bud, the rosebud. And I'm going to put this on the back, the wrong side of, whatever color you want your hearts to be and your blossoms. And then I will take this over and fuse it to the back. I'll take the iron and follow the instructions for whatever fuse you have, and follow those instructions and fuse that. And the reason I cut loosely is that I want that fuse to extend beyond the drawn line, so that fuses all the way to the very, very edge. So I'll fuse it. Once it's fused and cool, then again, I'll use my paper cutters and cut out those two elements. And I'll do that for all of these. I'll do that for each and every item that I'm going to be using. And then for these green parts and pieces, I will simply loosely cut out a section that will fit on the back of this. So I'm going to need about 1, 2, probably 3 different greens here to actually fuse all of my green elements onto the back. I might need 4, we'll see. But that is what we'll do then. We'll fuse all of those. Once they are fused and cut out, then you're going to remove, and this is something I wanted to point out as well. Have you all ever heard of the template marking pencils? This one is very, very old. It's probably 20 to 25 years old. It cost $1 back when I originally got it. I keep it in this thing, but it is a dark pencil, but it's a wax. It has wax, and it traces all of my templates beautifully without rubbing. That's wax does not rub off on my skin. It does not rub off on my fabric. If you're using a marker of any kind, or even an ink pen, or just a regular pencil, and you're tracing your elements, that, and as you rub your hand over it, it rubs off on the side of your hand, and then it ends up getting on your fabric. So I highly recommend grabbing a plastic template marking pencil to do this. This works great on plastic template film. It works great on paper-backed fuse. It doesn't rub off. So that's why I recommend it. So that's what that is. I'm going to go ahead and get all of these fused and cut. And then you're simply going to take all of those elements and you're going to start placing them on your square. Now, for mine, I've placed the hearts on the horizontal position and the top and bottom. And I've placed these buds on the diagonal position. And I'll use these crease lines to help me line everything up as I lay it on my background square. I will definitely do this on your ironing board, because that way you don't have to move anything. Once you've laid it down on there, then and you're happy with it, then you can press it. Start from the back. Start with the back element. So I'd start with my hearts first, because they're nice and big. Then I would place these pink buds on here. In my case, they're going to be red. And then on top of that pink or red bud, I would lay the green, I'm not sure what you call that, but it's the part of the bud. And then the stem. The stem might be tucked underneath, and then lay those leaves on there. And once you're happy with where everything is positioned, make sure that you have at least a 1/2 inch available all the way around the outside edge of your block for the seam allowance and just a little bit of extra. Then press it and get everything pressed down beautifully. And once all of this is pressed down beautifully, then you're going to want to set up your sewing machine for applique. Now, I have these threads. This is all thread art, rayon, polyester. I think it's rayon thread, actually. it's beautiful thread, and I have probably, I'm going to say 125 different colors that, because I love to do, applique. And so what I've done is I went upstairs to where I have all of this thread, and I found a color that will complement the squares to applique them down, or you could use a black or a brown and just applique all of it that way, or you could use a monofilament where it's clear and you can't see it. When you applique the elements, you can either use a blanket stitch, you can use a zigzag, or you can use a straight stitch. Oftentimes when I have tiny little pieces, like maybe these leaves, I might just use a straight stitch. For the hearts, I might use a blanket stitch. Let's see what I did on this quilt. Let's move this. I have so many things here. Gonna move this all out of the way. Okay, what did I do when I appliqued this? Oh, I did a fancy stitch around these hearts. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to see that or not. Is that possible? I don't know that you're going to be able to see that. But it is a fancy stitch. We have all these beautiful fancy stitches on our sewing machines, our domestic sewing machines, that we never use. And so for these nice big hearts, I used a fancy stitch. I used a pink thread, and the stitch was very wide. It's a very wide stitch. It's about almost a half an inch wide as it goes around here. And so I stitched these all down using that fancy stitch. I used a blanket stitch on the buds, and I used a straight stitch on the leaves, the stem, and this bottom piece here. Does anybody know, what do you call that thing? I know there's a name for this under here. I can't think of it. But anyway, so that was all straight stitch. And that's how I put that together. I think it would be fun to do this quilt where you actually make 5 of these blocks so that, whoops, where'd it go? It's over here. So that on the quilt, you have an applique block in the center and in all 4 corners. I think that would be beautiful. And I think I might try that with these scrappy blocks that I have cut out. So that's how, those are some recommendations on how you can applique the elements. Sepal, thank you, Ari, thank you. Appreciate that. So that's called a sepal here in that thing there. So it's a fun block. I think the scrappier it would be, the better, because I personally love scrappy quilts, just like this one behind me, that Purple Passions. It's got lots of different fabrics in it. This one, because I used certain lines of fabric, they're all clean fabrics. It all has a white undertone here. The quilt that's behind me, again, I wanted just to point this out. This quilt back here is both clean and muddy. You're seeing clean fabrics and you're seeing muddy fabrics in there. I love that. You may have never noticed that before in a quilt, and now you'll start noticing it. And you'll use scraps in the way that pleases your eye, the way that really speaks to you. So, all right, any other, let's see, we might have some more. Okay, Becky, you had asked a question, how do you decide when to cut a template or when to cut squares? Did I already answer that question? I think we did. What I do is if you have a stash already that's large enough, then you can go ahead and just randomly choose to cut whatever you want. But if you're just getting started on your stash, cut out squares first and strips, and then get to templates after that. Lori mentions here she took scraps from a coordinated pattern and did all the tumbler cuts. It made a beautiful baby quilt. Oh yeah, that would be beautiful. Yep. And then Barb mentions, when cutting 2.5-inch strips, do you cut them in a particular length? Oh, this is a good point. And I meant to thank you so much, Barb, for bringing this up. When I'm cutting strips of fabric from my stash, either 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3.5 inch wide. Those strips can vary from 12 inches to 44 inches. It doesn't matter because often when you are putting strip sets together, your strip set doesn't start out as long as a 44 inch, right? But if I have 44 inches long, I go ahead and cut that. If I only have 12 inches long, I cut that and I'll put that in there. I have a whole playlist on using strips from your scrap stash to make beautiful quilts. And that's where you can use all of those, the variety of those strips. So check that out. Let's see. And then Rhonda had asked here about ditch stitching when seams are ironed open. But hopefully if you're using a shorter stitch length, that shouldn't be a problem. Jessie says when you're stuck for starting to scrap your stash, when you're starting to scrap up your stash, I found selecting a color to start with or a section of storage, like if you just dumped in bins or shelves without sorting first. Prior to this, decide what's the biggest size you'll cut. When Lori said anything smaller than a fat quarter worked for her, I suddenly could really get going. I chose a bin of scraps and chose a color I didn't really like to start. I then chose what size squares or strips I'd cut. I found setting up a card table in our family room so I could visit with my husband and watch TV at the same time with him. That really helped to divert me from over-focusing. That's so good. You need to do your scrap up your stash, gals, with a friend or listening to music or watching TV, or that's a very good point. Jessie hopes this helps, but even if it's just saying for the next 5 minutes, this is what I'll do, can really help. Absolutely. It's important to just get started somewhere and just do it in small increments if you have a ton of stuff. All right, let me see here. I am going to go back to the gallery here. Any questions from anyone? Who's actually putting their block together? Because I'm sharing so much, I haven't actually sewn or stitched or fused, but who is actually doing it that you can share your block with us? Anybody willing to do that? Nobody? Did somebody on this page raise their hand? I was on the next page. I'm looking through all of the different. Here, Lori up there. It looks like you're willing to share. Let me spotlight Lori up there. Okay, what do you have there?
Oh, I've got all of my 4-inch squares.
Excellent.
I've started chain piecing them.
Assembly line. Wonderful.
Half square.
Beautiful.
But I'm doing them for all of the blocks.
Yep.
So
yep.
They're a long chain.
Exactly. Then you can cut them all apart. So press them all, trim them all, and then lay them all out. Have any of you watched my webbing, web-a-block video on my YouTube channel? Are any of you familiar with that? I hope that helps you. That really helped me, especially when you have squares within a block that are all different, half square triangles, quarter square triangles, and they all have to be facing a certain direction, oriented a certain way within each row. If you have that block right next to you at your sewing machine and you just start sewing, picking up the first two columns and stitching, oh, that really helps to keep everything in order. And then you can hold it up and you've got it all webbed together in columns, and you can just double check before you put it sideways and start sewing the columns in the rows. And then you've got your blocks done beautifully. And I actually, look at that. That's beautiful. Look at that one. I'm going to spotlight this. Keep it there. Look at there. Isn't that pretty? Love it. Burgundies and pinks. What a great way to use up the scraps. Love it. Good job.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for sharing. That's great. Any others? Let me go back to gallery here and I can peek around. Oh, here we go. Here's one from Linda. Let me spotlight Linda. Look at that. Love it. Excellent.
I'm using a fusible that is sticky so you can replace it. You can pull it off
Yes.
and keep moving it, which I find wonderful.
That is wonderful. There's a number of brands that are like that where you can literally just move things around until you're happy with it. Once you press it, it's permanent, usually. I mean, you can rewarm it again and pull it up, but then you're going to have some stickiness back there. So, I mean, you can if you need to, but once it's pressed, it's pretty much permanent. So that was beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Now I'm going to go back up. Isabel raised her hand. I'm going to spotlight her. Okay, what you got? You can unmute yourself.
And
There you go.
is it unmuted?
Yep, you got it. Uh-huh.
I just laid mine out using.
Hey.
So I'm going to try and hold it up and hopefully it'll stay on this little board and not completely.
Oh, it's beautiful. Love it. So you've got a gray. It looks like maybe a black, or is that a dark gray with it?
It's
and then
a dark
pink.
green. It's a dark
pretty.
green, like gingham.
Oh, beautiful.
And then it's like a light mottled green,
Uh-huh.
the yellow and the pink. So it's just all that, like I said, I made a quilt for my daughter.
Uh-huh.
Her room. And this is just what was left over. And I thought,
perfect.
There's so much, I need to use it.
Yep. Absolutely. That's perfect. I love it. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that.
I'll sew it, see how it goes. I've got everything cut, but I use my AccuQuilt dies to cut. It's just so much easier on my hands since I've had an accident. I have a weak side, so it's easier for me just to lay it and cut it that way.
Absolutely. You know, I have my AccuQuilt and I just never use it. I've got to get in the habit of doing that. But anyway,
if you've got the value die, it does the 3 squares. I forgot what size. I did that one night just watching TV. I just kept laying it on that value die, and I think it gives you a 4-inch, a 2-inch, and a 2.5-inch triangle. It gives you the half square triangles in one of them. But I just laid it on there. It was rolling like crazy. And then everything that I snipped off, I threw in my, the crumb box. So I would snip it and put the darks in a crumb box. And I had my light crumb box. And I was just going back and forth that way. So it kind of got through a whole, I actually did 2 drawers, like your bin.
Wonderful.
One night, just going through and just putting it on that. And then I have also the, 2.5-inch squares, and so bigger pieces I was laying on that and just would do 2.5-inch squares because I find that's one of the things a lot of patterns ask for is 2.5-inch squares. So I thought I feel that being up first because I know I use a lot.
I do have out on my YouTube channel. I have a lot of free patterns that require 2.5-inch squares and 5-inch squares. And most all of us have 2.5-inch squares and 5-inch squares. So if you want to know what you can do with those 2 sizes, go out to my Scrap Stash playlist and you'll find all kinds of fun little patterns there. So, and the PDFs are usually in the description box below the video for you. So I'm looking around. I'm going to move to the next thing here. Anybody else want to share any pattern blocks that you might have done?
This is Lori.
Yes.
I also have the AccuQuilt, and I love the strips, doing strips on it, because you can strip a lot of scraps
perfect
really quickly into your 2.5. I have 2.25 for binding strips and 1.5. So yeah, AccuQuilt is good if you have, arthritis and issues with
absolutely. Yep. I see that Ari has a question here. She's asking if I was saying webbing. Yes, webbing, webbing, kind of like how spiders web things together. When I web a block, I'm calling it webbing. Yes. So if you want to look for how to web a quilt block on my YouTube channel, you'll find that there. And it'll walk you step by step. And then Sherry has a question here regarding length of strips. Is there a minimum length used for your stash? For example, if it's shorter than 12 inches, do you put it in the crumb pile versus the strip pile? It varies on how lazy I am. If I decide, oh, I don't want to, cut this anymore, or maybe I don't even want to cut it into a true, 2.5 inch strip. Maybe it's just the end of something. I'll just throw it in my crumb stash, because when you are crumbing up blocks, you do need crumbs that extend across a block, as I shared with you here. Let me show you. So you could do either. My answer is you could do either. Whatever your heart desires, you can throw them in either. So as you can see, when you start in the center, you're starting with tiny, whoops, I need to spotlight my table. Where am I? I'm on the second page. Here we go. Okay. I will remove this so you can see this better. There. Okay. So here, this is kind of busy here with all this color. But so here is a crumb block that I put together. And when you're starting your crumbs in the center, you're using tiny little pieces. But as you can see, when you get to the outside, you need longer pieces to extend across. I mean, you can make them by sewing crumbs together to make a long piece. But I often just like to have those long pieces available. So here's another one. And I didn't really use any, I actually created long pieces by sewing sections together. This one right here, I just created used a long piece here, but here you see I created some long pieces to get across. So you can use those long pieces in your crumb stash or not. It's totally up to you. And then I see a comment here. It's titled Samsung SM. I'm not sure who that is, but thank you. She says that she's heard a lot of great ideas to use, and I appreciate that. I mean, she may have had to leave. I'm not sure, but that was wonderful that she got some ideas. That was my goal, to give you lots and lots of great ideas. Did I answer your question, Sherry, on the length of strips? Does that help you there? And I'm hoping to see more blocks. Yes, thanks. Sherry says, okay, good, good, good. Let me go to the gallery here. What are some other questions? Are there some things that some of you have run across, or maybe there is a question that you wrote down in your notes as I have been sharing today, and it has not yet been answered? I want to make sure we get those questions answered. Oh, Hattie just put here to wash or not to wash your fabric. So with scraps, the washing would have already been done. In my case, I don't wash scraps that I've already gotten because typically they've already been washed if I wash them. I do wash bright reds, greens, blues, purples, because I have had horrible experiences with reds, blues, greens, and purples where they bleed after you make a quilt. So if I do, and I rarely purchase fabric anymore because I have so much here. But if I do bring home fabric that is a bright, bold color, I will pre-wash it and dry it so that it settles that color. So there is no bleeding. And then by the time that gets used in a project and then the remnants get scrapped up, it's already been pre-washed. Does that make sense? So my scraps that I have are from remnants, which if they needed to be pre-washed, they would have been. I do not necessarily pre-wash light fabrics and some of the medium fabrics. I don't necessarily do that because unless they have a lot of and you don't find this at nice quilting stores, but I have gotten yardage from people that have given me yardage of a light fabric that has it's a starch. What's the word I'm looking for? It makes the fabric hard. Yes, there's a sizing, an industrial sizing that came from the store. I want to get rid of that. I don't want that. So even if it's just a light fabric, if I feel that, and it's usually more inexpensive fabrics that we have those issues. Thanks, Ari, for being with us. We'll see you later. So I will definitely wash that out so we don't have that in my quilts. But if I just if I buy nice quilting cotton from the store and it's a light or a medium, and you can kind of tell if the fabric is going to bleed or not. If it's going to bleed, I will wash it. If it's not, I don't worry about it. That's just my personal preference. So Carol has raised her hand. Let me find you on my thing here. Where'd you go? Let's see. Are you on the? Oh, there you are. Right over here. Okay. Yes, Carol.
So have you, yes, I used to wash and then not wash, but it sounds like you even mix pre-washed fabrics with your non-washed in a quilt.
Yes, yeah. So most of my light fabrics, if I received that light fabric as a yardage of some sort, I don't necessarily pre-wash that. Unless it feels like there's something on it that needs to get washed away. And so those will be, eventually used in projects, and then the remnants will get scrapped up and they'll be used with pre-washed fabrics. But what I'm going to do when I'm scrapping up my stash, all of those remnants go back to the ironing board, and I do personally starch them to give them body back into the fabric, starch them and press them.
Yeah, and some of that stiffness that you feel is actually formaldehyde,
Oh,
depending
wonderful.
on where you're buying it.
Mm-hmm.
So if any of you have had asthma and you're coughing when you're making a quilt, it's the fabric. And
Yes,
then I
and
used to wear a mask, or then I learned to buy better fabric.
And you can usually smell it or feel it. You can feel it. If it's not a nice, soft feel to the fabric, there's some sort of an industrial starch that's been put on it, and I want to get rid of that. So those definitely do get washed. Yes. Somebody else had raised their hand. I missed it. Where did it go? Where did it go? Go to the second page here. If you did raise your hand, if you would just unmute yourself and start talking so I can find you. I don't know.
Lori,
Okay. Yes.
Is faultless spray starch all right to use?
I have used it, and I've never had any issues with it. Now, one thing that we do need to be aware of is that any starch that we're using is basically a sugar. It turns into a sugar. That's what it is, right? Except for, I've been told, Acorn paper piecing product is not, and it does not turn in. That's what I've been told. And so if you are storing your fabrics in a basement that's prone to have bugs, then you want to make sure that everything that you have pressed using any kind of starch is sealed in a container, just to be safe. All of my fabrics have been in a basement for the 50 years that I have been quilting. I've never had any problems with it. But if you find that you do have problems, then just make sure everything is sealed in a container. Yep.
Okay.
Any other questions? Have you all been inspired to get to cutting up your scraps? And when is your first appointment? Have you put it on your calendar? Got to get that appointment on the calendar. Do you all have lots of scraps? Yeah, Hattie says yes, this afternoon. Darylyn says today. Barb says today. Excellent. Great, great. And this is a perfect day to get started. Start with that new year, right? Getting everything all scrapped up and organized. If you have not actually done a stash first, gather your tubs or your pillowcases or whatever you have all your scraps in, bring them to your cutting area, get your ironing board set up, get your rulers set up, get your rotary cutters, get lots of fresh blades, get ready to go, and then just start cutting. And then if you have a foam board like what I had shared with you, like this, that's something that will be very helpful off to the side, or you can put them directly into containers, or whatever works best for you. Get started on cutting. Cut up squares and strips first, for sure, if you don't have anything at all. And cut up 2.5 and 5-inch squares first, for sure, maybe even 1.5-inch squares, just to get started with something and the strips. And then once you have stuff that, you can actually see that you've got a stash that's starting to get organized, then maybe even grab some of your tumblers or your template rulers and start cutting your scrap using various template rulers. But it might take, yes, somebody just had a question.
Rhonda.
I think you're on the second page. Let me find you. I missed you. Speak again so I can find you. Oh, there you are. I see you.
Yeah.
There we go. Gotcha.
Yeah. Firstly,
Okay.
I just want to say thank you because it's been brilliant. I've learned a lot. I've been doing the scrap stash thing for about 3 years now, but I never thought, and I never read anywhere to put it into light, medium, and dark. So that's been a really good thing for me. And the fact that you can mix the muddy or the dirty colors or the primitive with bright ones, that's good because sometimes that held me back.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just want to say thanks heaps.
Oh, wonderful. And I'm so glad that you joined us today, all the way from Australia. I'm not sure if all of you knew that, but she's from Australia. She's in New South Wales, Australia. So it's January 2nd where she is.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was 5 o'clock or before 5 o'clock in the morning when she jumped on. So thank you so much for joining us today. It was great to have you, and stay in touch. All of you, stay in touch. If you have questions, I'm just an email away. Let's see. Barb says here, I'm lucky enough that I have a table that one end is my ironing station and the other end is my cutting station. Oh, that's great. With space in the center to place the cut stacks. That's fabulous, Barb. I wish I had that. My space doesn't allow for that, but that's great. But
Lori,
yeah,
could I interrupt? I can't find the place to raise my hand.
Okay, that's
Sorry.
fine. And it's Becky, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I just wanted to thank you for taking the time to do this. I've
you're welcome.
read your books and I've begun working on my mess of scraps. And I'm just so impressed with you because we both started with a big bunch of scraps. You made it into a business. I just made it into a mess. Thank you.
Oh, you're so welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Becky. And I hope you got to work on some of the blocks, or maybe you'll do that later and scrap up the stash too. So thank you. Anybody else have blocks they want to share with us or anything they'd like to share? You are welcome to unmute yourself and just let me know what your name is and I'll find you and spotlight you. Carol
Lori?
has, yes.
It's
Yeah.
Sandy. Go ahead,
I
Carol.
mentioned before, I've been quilting for a little bit, but what I wanted to share again, there's no quilt police. It's something that got pounded into my head. And if you walk into your quilt room and you look like it's overwhelmed, take a step back, rethink it. How is it going to work for you? That is so, I can't think of the right word, but it's, when you start your quilting space and make it into what makes sense to you, your inspirations will start coming. If you're trying to duplicate what worked for somebody else and you're struggling,
right.
I think Hattie said she has HD. Yes. Couple that with OCD and everything else, and you could be a mess. And now it's not fun.
Yeah. So that's what I was also trying to share with you. What you need to do is find solutions that really work for you. Get ideas from other people, but find solutions that really work for you. And you had your hand raised, and I wanted to chat with you. I've got you spotlighted. Hi.
Hi, Lori. This is Sandy. I wanted to say that I don't do a lot of scrap quilts. I like them a little more organized. But what I did learn that I really appreciated is that I do a lot of large queen and king size quilts. And so I use the 108 backing. And to do that into strips, I have just piles of it. And so that was very, very helpful to pre-cut that into into usable strips, depending on how much is left over. Because my long armor, the girl that I'm using right now, she just gives those back to me. And sometimes I have to separate them, because there might be some stitching in it. But putting that into rolls like you did, I thought was excellent. And also just pre-cutting that. I have started cutting that into 2.5-inch strips, especially the background, because that's usually, that then can be used as a medium or dark, whatever I've chosen.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, using the extra material. Now you have inspired me a little bit with with trying some quilts or scraps, because I do have a lot, that is just left over. But I like to have more of an organized thing. So one thing I have found is that I do separate my background and my lights from all of my other colors. So I have a place for just, blacks and navies, and then the creams and whites.
Sure.
That's been very helpful for me, and then cut it from there. But thank you very much.
Oh, you're
I
welcome,
really appreciate
Sandy.
it, and some of your
Wonderful.
hints, especially about the marking tool.
Yes.
That's very helpful for on the top of some of the things that it seems to spread onto my hand. So thank you.
Isn't that irritating when you get it on your hand and then you get it on your fabric, and it's just so
exactly
wonderful.
Exactly. So
Well,
thank
I'm
you.
so glad that you joined. Thank you, Sandy. Appreciate that. Thank you so much. And I think someone else raised, Isabel, did you raise your hand again? Okay, let me spotlight you. And then I also see a comment there I'll read here in a minute too. Oh, look at that. She's got it done. I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much for sharing.
It's gonna be really pretty.
And it looks like you've pressed your seams open.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna ask. And then I thought, well, if it's getting bulky, so after I got all this rows, I just pressed
them open. Perfect. Love it. Great job. Thank you for sharing the block. I appreciate that. I obviously didn't get one done, but I'm so glad that you shared that. And then I see there's another chat. Chris Horn has said, thank you for the ideas for using my scraps between my own and those of a dear friend that no longer quilts. I want to use a large amount of them this year, and this helps me to achieve that quilting goal. Wonderful. I hope that you make up lots of beautiful quilts with those scraps, because none of it needs to go in the trash, right? We can use all of this. It can find a home somewhere, even if that home happens to be pillow stuffing. It can find a home. If you can't use it in the crumbs, chop it up really tiny and put it in for pillow stuffing. Barb has another comment here. The word perfect is very frustrating to me. That's correct. Perfect is someone's opinion. If you think something is perfect, it is. It only takes one thread off and perfect is out the window. So true. Perfect is in the eye of the beholder, right? So whatever you feel is perfect. And I've always said at all of my workshops when I'm working with students, there are no quilt police. I say this a lot in my YouTube videos. I don't like quilt police, and I won't allow them anywhere close. We have the right to play with our fabric and with our scraps and with our blocks and with our quilts, and create and design what really speaks to us and what makes us happy. And if it makes you happy, if you like it, then it is perfect. So that's something to keep in mind. Don't be concerned about. I know there's things that I just love. I'll show them to my husband and he'll go, that's just his opinion, right? I don't care. If it's something that I really love, then I'm happy. Very happy. All right, let's see if there's any other hands being risen. Okay. Isabel, okay, so Isabel says, since she's joined my membership, Isabel is one of my members in my YouTube channel. I have two different levels of membership in my YouTube channel. And so every month we have a Zoom call, and Isabel did the Jelly Roll quilt. We did that. I can't remember if it was September or October. And then she also worked on the Winter Village of scraps. And that one is fun. So you must be the block of the month member because you got that block of the month. That was a sew along pattern that you get. So as a block of the month member on my YouTube channel, you do get all of my free block of the month patterns each year for free. And then you also get sew-alongs as I do those. Those patterns are free. But every month we learn something new. We work on something new. It's just an inspiration to get us into our quilting studios, creating and using up or getting our scrap stash used up into beautiful quilts. So if you got a chance to take a snapshot of that slide on my presentation, there's a video on my YouTube channel that tells you all about my membership and the two different levels and what happens in those two levels. So you're welcome to go out and view that and see what you think. So all right, who else do we have here? Anybody else? We actually got through this sooner than what I was expecting. I was expecting we'd end up going so much longer, but we did good in getting through this. Is there anything? And then Joan says, thank you for taking time to do this presentation, for the refresher ideas and the new perspectives. Thank you, Joan, for joining, being a part of it. And I hope that you've been inspired to go to town this afternoon and just get to work. That's my goal. So great way to start out the new year. Here's one other thing I might share with you. That I did a video during the month of, let me spotlight this. During the month of December, I did a video. Let me move this over here. I have such a mess here. Boy, I'm going to have to do some cleaning when I get done. What I did a three gift ideas for you in the month of December, and they're all using orphan blocks. Do y'all have orphan blocks laying around? Gather those orphan blocks, follow that video, and we'll go ahead and show you what you can do with them. So here I've got 2 orphan blocks that I used, and I created a tote bag with it. And the pattern is out there with the YouTube video. I believe I did this like the second week of December. So if you go out into the my YouTube channel, you'll find this video there. Here is the happy birthday. This is one, all of these blocks are actually from the 52-week series of scrappy blocks. And this was one of the scrappy blocks that I had done during that 52-week series. And this one I made into a placemat so that the birthday person in your family has a special placemat whenever it's their birthday. So that is an idea for you. And then here is this little guy right here. It is made from an orphan block. All of these orphan blocks were the same size. They were all 12.5 inches unfinished. And this was also made using a 12.5 inch orphan block. So these are 3 gift ideas, or just ideas that you can use personally from your stash of orphan blocks. And again, all of these were made with 12.5 inch orphan blocks. And let's see, there's some more. Carol says, thank you. It's exciting to get creative things going. Yes, it absolutely is. Becky, yes, this meeting has been recorded, and it's being recorded for the membership. So when it goes out on YouTube, it will be available for my membership levels. They will get to see that. But there's really no way for me to share it otherwise, but it will be out on the membership. So that's where it will be. Rhonda also raised her hand. If you want to ask your question, there we go.
Just a quick comment that I have watched a lot of scrap quilting, and what they call scrap quilting, but it's of a range of fabrics. And so I appreciate yours is, could be a piece of fabric 20 years old or 5 years old. Mm-hmm. It's not actually a particular range. Do you know what I mean by that?
Oh, you mean like a line of fabric?
Yes,
a fabric line? Okay, I see what you're saying. Yes. So they'll buy every design in that line of fabric, and every time an artist comes out with a new line of fabric, she or he might have maybe 10 to 12 different fabrics that you can use that all coordinate in that line. Is that what you mean?
Yes.
And then they make scrappy quilts from that, and that's beautiful. That's a wonderful way to use your lines of fabric. And some quilters, that's what they prefer. They prefer to use a line of fabric. That way it is going to be either all muddy or all clean, depending on the line of fabric, because it's all going to coordinate. But you don't have to do that. And the way I have designed my Speedy solutions is so that you can use anything. And yes, many of my fabrics are 15, 20 years old. They are quite old, but they work. Mm-hmm. They absolutely do. It's great, and I love to be able to use it. And I love to me, there's freedom in just pulling value, light, medium, dark, instead of, now, does this orange go with this blue, or does this, I don't worry about colors or hues. I just pull values, light, medium, and dark, and put them together. Very scrappy, as you can see, or not. Depends on how you want to put it together. So. Yeah,
which is the big thing that I've learned today is about the value.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
It's brilliant.
To me, that's just very, very helpful. It's a freeing thing to me anyway.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Anybody else have a block ready that you can show us? A few people have dropped off here.
Yeah, I just got mine done.
All right. Who's speaking? Give me your name and I'll look for you.
This is Leanne.
Leanne. Okay, let's see. I'm going to locate you. There we go. Okay, I'm going to spotlight you now. Very good. I love it. All right. It's all sewn. Very nice.
This was fun.
Yes. It's a beautiful block. Yep. So are you going to make yours so that it has mostly the Bachelor in Love blocks and just one applique block? Or are you going to add some more applique blocks in yours? What do you plan to do? Anybody have any plans on making more of the applique block?
I'm just going to make one.
Just going to make one? Okay. Anybody else? Anybody else giving it any thought?
I am struggling with my Steamer seam too.
Are you?
So I'm up doing the hand appliquing because it's not paper's not feeling. So
okay. Do you think
that'll take me a while?
Do you think it's an old batch of Steamer seam? Sometimes the older the product gets, the more fussy it gets to work with.
Yeah, it's I'll have to experiment with it a little bit, but I've always loved hand applique. I just stopped for today. I do the iron-on stuff, but now I'm going to go back to my tried and true hand applique.
There you go. There you go. Okay. Barb has asked a question here. She's asking, am I to understand that if I join the membership, that's out on my YouTube channel, and might not be able to watch the Zoom live, I will have access afterward? That is correct. When you become a member on my channel, all of my 2-hour Zoom classes are out there on YouTube. Only people who are members can actually see them, and you can watch them as often as you want to. to get through a particular project. But if you can't make it the day of the actual Zoom class, no worries, because it goes out on YouTube by that afternoon. It takes a while for the 2-hour Zoom to render. It takes me a while to get it rendered and then uploaded. But by that afternoon, it should be on the YouTube channel. And as a member, yes, you can watch it whenever you want, as often as you want. That is correct. And then Barb mentions also she bought enough fabric to do a larger quilt. So she's, oh good, she's going to do more applique blocks. Yeah, I want to see pictures of it, Barb. Make sure you send pictures so we can see that. So she must be on the second page. Let's see, where's Barb? I see her. Thumbs up. There she goes. Yep, thank you. Excellent. Excellent. All right. Any other questions? I keep going back and forth here page by page, and everybody understands how to do the applique block. Everyone understands the half square triangles for the Bachelor in Love block. You know what might be fun too? That Bachelor in Love block doesn't have to have anything to do with Valentine's Day. It could be, you could make that block in completely scrappy colors and every single block be completely different. That would be fun. And Terry, are you showing us your block? I think Terry's showing us a block here. Let me spotlight you. I just happened to be on the first page and I saw that. Yay! I love it. Purples and pinks. And
purples, pinks, and floral.
Oh, I love it. That's great.
Thank you.
Love it. Excellent.
It was hard to figure out how to share.
Yeah, it gets cumbersome where when you think you're moving right, you're actually moving left, or when you think you're moving up, you're actually moving down. It's all backwards. Thank you for sharing. It's beautiful. Excellent. Any others? Some of you look like you're really busy. You're working away. So you're either scrapping up your stash or you're working on the blocks. How many are going to be working on their stash this afternoon when we get done with this call? Raise your hand if you are. Nope. There we go. We got some here. We got some on this page. We have some on this page. Excellent. Becky's got thumbs up there. Yep. Rhonda, do you have another question? Okay. It looked like a hand was raised there. Okay. Yes, and Barb's answered me. She's going to be scrapping up her stash. This really inspires me, ladies, to see that many of you are inspired to get working in your stash. And that's my whole goal. I want to see quilters everywhere around the world, including Australia, Rhonda, where you are using up your scraps and it doesn't get put into the landfill, that we can use it. It all can find a home somewhere. And fabric is precious. It costs money. It costs someone money. And so we need to just work with it and find ways to use it. And even like this with the leftover orphan blocks, trying to do something with those leftover orphans. I love making leftover orphan quilts. And in one of my lectures that I present to guilds, I talk about it's important if you're an appliquer or a quilter, all of those leftover parts and pieces, maybe you've got lots of leftover circles or leaves or whatever it happens to be, put those all together in one area. And then what you can do is put together a beautiful art quilt using all of those leftover pieces. Everything can find a home. You just start getting creative. Give yourself the freedom to play in your quilt studio and have fun with all of the fabrics. What I have done with a couple of different quilts. Oh, look at this. We got to spotlight Leanne. Something just popped up here. I want you all to see. Look at that. Isn't that adorable?
Yeah, so this is what I use my scraps for. I cut my scraps into these small pieces. They're either 1.5 by 1.5 inch squares, or they're 1 inch by 1.5 inch. And then
Okay.
if I can find my little basket here by the sewing machine, take a tour through my mess.
We're all familiar with this. This is how all of ours, I think, look.
So I use them for leaders and enders, like somebody else was talking about. But I have these with all the pieces to make one block clipped together in a basket next to my sewing machine. So all the little pieces I need for one of those little blocks is clipped together.
Excellent.
And then
Love it.
They're all kinds of fabric. There's Christmas fabric in here, anything you can imagine. 4th of July,
and
whatever.
you can use those as leaders and enders. So you're actually creating a block while you are working on another project, right?
Yep, exactly.
It's excellent. I love it. It's really cute, and it's so tiny. So there are many quilters that do like to work with very small pieces. Personally, for me, a 1.5 inch square is small enough, but I love how she's got some that are even tinier. That is great. I got some more questions here. Let's see. Rhonda said she's going to be working on sorting into value this afternoon. Darren says she's bought a lot of used material from estate or garage sales. Oh, yes. I did a video in July on estate sale, bags of estate sale fabrics. It's a fun video. You got to and check it out. But it is fun, isn't it, when you get some wonderful fabrics from quilters that, are selling their fabric at either estate sales or garage sales. Love that. Linda says, thank you so much for doing this Zoom meeting and giving us your time. I love working with scraps, and you've given us so many great ideas. I'm glad that you got some ideas. That means so much. Isabel says, I have huge bunch of fabric scraps with fusible on them, and I make snippet quilts that are art quilts. Oh, that's great. You'll have to share with us one of those if you have one handy. And then Becky says, Lori, do you have many UFOs? Because I have a YouTube channel, let me go back to gallery view here. Because I have a YouTube channel, and because every week I'm trying to create something for my viewers, I end up with lots of small little things, blocks and so forth. What I try to do, like with that 52-week series of scraps, when I was teaching a new block for 52 weeks, I try to make them all the same size so that I can end up using it together. But there are some unusual things that I end up with that I've gotten in this storage unit. And so then I need to figure out ways to use those UFOs. And as I come up with ways, I'll make more YouTubes to show you that. But yeah, I do end up with a lot of little UFOs based upon my YouTube channel. I do have hanging in my quilting room, my long arm quilting room, I think at last count, I think I had 42 quilts that have to be quilted. So I have a lot of quilts to work on. And the one I want to start on this week, tomorrow, it's my New York quilt, my New Year's Day quilt from 2 years ago. And I really highly recommend that you go out and look at that video. It was the New Year's Day. What did I call it? I can't remember. But it used 1.5 inch squares throughout it. It was set on point. It had some beautiful applique pieces on each corner, and it's going to be a fun one. So I'm going to do the quilting. I will YouTube some of that, and then I'll also share that link for that particular quilt. But that, I think, is what I'm going to do this year, is focus on trying to incorporate some of these little projects that I started and get it finished and show you how you can finish. And maybe that will inspire you with some of your UFOs. So, Carol's asking, where do I find info for South Carolina? Carol, if you will email me either through my website or just respond to like the email that you got from me, I will send you the link to Stitch and Haven and to that Sew Vacation, which is coming up in May of this next year. And I'll send you the link, and you can read all about it. And I hope that you'll decide that you and a friend would love to come. My husband's going to come with me. Obviously, he is not going to be quilting, but he always comes with me when I travel, even on quilt cruises. But he enjoys his time, seeing wherever we happen to be, whether it's a cruise or somewhere in the United States. And so I hope you'll join us. So yeah, definitely email me. Remind me, Carol. So email me so that I can send that to you. Did I miss any other questions? I think I got everybody. Isabel has her hand raised, I'm seeing. Yes.
I'm just going to show you that snippet quilt that I made.
Okay, let me spotlight.
Rotate it. Let me rotate my camera and see if you can see him up there. He coming. There he is.
Oh, look at that. So,
yeah, and so let me
is the animal? The animal is made with little snippets. Wonderful. Yes. There you go.
And then you just do some thread work over it. You just fuse him all down, and then you can get him on your domestic. And I just did some, stitching over top of him. But all of that is just scraps that I just snipped
up. It was like a collage.
Yes.
It's like a collage. Yes.
You just throw it out, and and then you just lay your mat down. Your what's that called? Your ironing mat, that little silicone mat.
Yes.
And then you put your drawing under it, and then you just put your snippets on it, and you fuse them, and then you fuse them down to fabric afterwards. Absolutely.
It's a great way to use up all of that fused fabric that you have left over.
Yes.
To make collage. In fact, I have a whole dresser drawer filled with various fused pieces of fabric, and I'm anxious to get to a collage quilt where I can actually start using it. So excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Jessie, she says, thank you for the Zoom. It's a great way to start the year. I didn't get to work on your block, but I did complete 6 blocks for another project. Yay, that you're in the midst of. That's good. Good use of your time. God bless. Happy New Year. I need to leave, but I'll catch you next month. Great. Jessie's another one of my members, so I'll see her again in February. Rhonda, how very clever. The snippet quilt. Yes, it's a great idea. Hattie, wishing all of you a productive and prosperous new year. Thank you, Lori. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm not sure if Hattie is still on or if she already had to drop off, but thank you. And I guess it is 3 o'clock. It's 3 o'clock at my time. I'm not sure what it is for y'all, but thank you so much for joining me today. I hope all of you were inspired. You're all going to get to work on not only your scrap stash. It's 8 o'clock for Rhonda. Get your scrap stash cut up, sorted, organized, ready to go, and start making some beautiful scrappy quilts. I can't wait to see them. Make sure you post them out on my Facebook group page. It's a Quilting with Lori, Scrap Up Your Stash. I have a personal Lori Dickman Facebook page, but that's for like my family and stuff. But go to my Quilting with Lori, Scrap Up Your Stash. That's where you want to join there and share photos. And that would be great. So thank you, everybody, for joining. And I love all the thumbs up. Thanks so much from everybody. And the hearts, appreciate it. Have a wonderful, wonderful afternoon or evening or morning, wherever you happen to be. And I hope maybe we'll do this again another time. And thank you for all the nice comments here. I see a lot of nice comments from people. So until next time, have a great new year and happy quilting. Take care.